Chris thought he was Kurt Cobain, swung the mic stand around, the one that has the boom on the bottom, and he javelined it, and it took her fucking teeth right out.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. John Collura was a guitarist for a couple bands back in the late 90s that bled into the 2000s, later in the 2000s. So he transitioned through this whole late 90s into 2000 thing that I always talk about. And the two bands that he was known for were Beefcake and the Ataris. The Beefcake biography, which is on allmusic.com, is from the hardcore breeding grounds in Orange County. The four members of Beefcake have been grinding out their sardonic brand of punk since January 97. Obviously, this is an older review or older biography. Known for the sense of humor that shows up in both their lyrics and their performances, the lead singer has been known to wear a diaper on stage. I forgot about that. After 2 years of pounding the pavement in the tri-state area and being featured on 7-inch releases and compilations, including the Fearless Serial Killer compilation, which I talk about in the Joanna Hackett interview, so if you want to go check that out, you should, because that's a great interview. The band issued its first full-length album, Rejected, on Fearless Records in the autumn of 99. So later on, John left the band, which he talks about, to join the Ataris. Now, he gets in the Ataris before So Long Astoria comes out, and I didn't realize how much of a staple he was to that band and writing these albums, and which we do talk about. But if you don't know the Ataris are an American rock band from Anderson, Indiana, formed in 1996. They released 5 studio albums with So Long Astoria certified gold. Nice job, Ataris. In 2009, an album was announced to be entitled The Graveyard of the Atlantic, although the album's status has been on indefinite ambiguity. There we go. I'm so good at reading. With just 2 EPs released in 2010 and 2012, both with the same title as the awaited album. They are best known for their hit cover song, originally recorded by Don Henley, The Boys of Summer. I know that that's like the hit because on Spotify it's got 55 million downloads, so if you want to go check that out. But I would kind of say that San Dimas High School Football Rules would be their hit. That kind of helped drive them to get big, but whatever. I remember getting into the Ataris when their album Anywhere But Here came out, and there was a song on that called Angry Nerd Rock, which is probably one of my favorite Atari songs. It's so obscure, but I just loved the bass line because I was a bassist, and there's a part where he starts screaming, just like, don't tell me what to do, and being 17, 18 at the time, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, like, scream that line, and it just, I love that song a lot, even though John thought that album was shit, like he said in the teaser that I launched earlier this week. But this interview is about John's perspective about playing in the tri-state area scene, being in Beefcake, which I'm sure a lot of you are really fucking excited about, and then transitioning into the Ataris, and then there's just like a ton of Atari shit. So I think it was Monkey who got me connected with John. I'll have to double check that after. I mean, I'm already recording the intro to this, so sorry if I fucked that up, but I think it was Monkey who introduced me. So he connected us, reached out to John. John was down to do the interview, and this is what we talked about. The album Welcome the Night, being a broker before creating Beefcake, Serial Killer Records, meeting the Ataris, what the last Beefcake demo sounded like. It's pretty interesting. The Ataris dealing with lawsuits, a shit ton of Atari's craziness stories, and a ton more. Now, before we begin, there's just a bunch of things I want to talk about. One, David Bettino, thank you again for cleaning up. This is the track I was talking about. I got the track and I listened to it. And this is a very long interview. And this is a really good interview, and I started listening to John's track, and for some reason it recorded it very scratchy. And David Bettino, davidbettino.com, if you want to go check him out. He's been doing audio for a very long time, and now he does photography. He's been doing photography for a long time. He's a very creative motherfucker. He helped me out, and I sent him the track. I was like, you have to save my ass, and he did. And David, you are the best. Or Dave, I call you Dave. Everyone else calls you David. Go support him by going to davidbettino.com and hire him to do some very expensive photography. Well, I mean, he's not expensive. He might be expensive, but you should just hire him anyway to do photography because he's the shit, and thank you for that. Also, check out John's newer band, The Aged Band. If you go on Instagram, it's The Aged Band, all one word. And that's his new thing he's doing right now. There's a few things I do outside of this podcast. I do a daily webcomic that's on Instagram called Daily Bread. But if you look for it on Instagram, it's Your Daily Bread. It's DAILYBRED. There's no A. Your Daily Bread. I do daily comics. I have a bunch of books and merch and things like that. And it's one of my things I love doing. It's just daily thoughts that I have, and I have a character that I draw saying it. But the main thing from that is I want to announce that I have a new book coming out. I have 3 other books that I put out. One is just a collection of my comics. The other one is called How to Get Divorced, a guide for people going through some shit. It's about my actual divorce, but I illustrated it, and I'm pretty proud of that. That's on the website, yourdailybread.com. I also put out a book called Drink and Draw. It's a sketchbook for people or single people sitting at bars. That's also available on the website. That's for if you own a brewery or a bottle shop and you need something that you want people to do to get them off the phone, so you can go check that out. It's been a huge hit around Raleigh. I've been dropping these off around town for testing, and people have been going nuts. But the biggest thing I noticed is that people really love to draw dicks in these books. So my newest book coming out in November 1st, is going to be called Draw Some Richards, a sketchbook for people who like to draw ... You get the idea. Yes, this is going to be a book for people to draw pictures of dicks. I'm dead serious. I'm very intrigued on how this is going to work out because I think it's fucking hilarious. And it's a sketchbook, so it's going to have prompts like draw Richard in a tuxedo, draw Richard on a bicycle, and things like that. And then I just leave it to you, and you just will draw in it. I think this will be good for bachelorette parties, for bars, for just coffee table books, for people who are just very lonely and sitting in their rooms and want to draw dicks. So yes, keep a lookout for that, and that'll be on my Instagram. I'll be promoting that. Again, it's Your Daily Bread. The other thing I do is animation. I do freelance animation, so that's drive80.com, and I'll be putting out a new product soon, and what it's going to be is weekly deals on stock animations. They're going to be anywhere between $5 or $20. I'm going to limit them to a certain amount of deals per week, and so you should get on the email list. But it hasn't launched yet officially, but go to drive80.com, and I'll be mentioning that, or just follow me on Facebook, just Mike Doyle if you look it up, and I'll be talking about that there. I haven't launched it yet, but you can go to You can go to my Drive 80 Studios Facebook page, and I'll be talking about it there. So when it launches, so this is really going to be good for people in marketing companies who need content for their clients who are in the health and wellness industry, or if you're just a health and wellness content creator, this is going to be great for you because I'm going to start in that space and see how it goes, and then probably try other industries. So, all right, that's it. Thanks again to all the people who are Patreon supporters. It's $1 a month. And thank you to all the people who have sent donations. It's really fucking helpful. All the people who bought merch, all the people who listen, all the people who share this. Make sure you tag friends on the Instagram and share this episode with someone just by doing a share in the podcast app or whatever. Sorry this was so long. I just had to get that all out, and now we can get into the episode. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some nostalgia. With that said, let's get started.
Pardon me.
I literally hit record before you did that. Yeah, so I'm glad I got this figured out because last week when you had already started talking about so much cool shit.
I forgot everything.
That's fine. I mean, it was about
I'm only kidding.
some of it was about the Ataris, some of it was about the bassist going to jail.
I thought you'd do like a whole introduction.
I
Or is
do
that
that.
like before?
I record that the day before I launch it. So,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah, that's
Real
the
professional.
that's the
Gotcha.
fun behind the scenes that no one knows. It's the
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The pre-production and post-production.
Yeah, I don't do that intro before I get into it. That's done. There was a couple. It was like last November to no, it was like last August until November. I had stockpiled a ton of interviews. So they were like, "Hey, when's this gonna come out?" I'm like, 4 months." They're like, "Jesus
Oh.
Christ." Now that yours is gonna come out in like 2 weeks though, because I I just hadn't any time to interview anybody. And then after yours, I was like, I really gotta get on this, and I've got like 10 scheduled already. I was like, Jesus Christ, this episode's fast.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, but yeah. So everyone listening, I think that a large part of this audience knows Beefcake, and
You would think, right?
you guys have come up a bunch of times in interviews. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's funny not to cut you off.
No,
which I
Steve,
probably
cut me off whenever you want, because this is about you, my friend.
I know, always about me. 20 years ago, it was August of 1999 is when our record came out. So it's been 20 years already.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy, which I mentioned to you the last time.
Yeah, I was, I
which
was, I
no one
was.
really cares about that anniversary, but that is pretty monumental, I think. That
Well,
20 years ago, four idiots got together and made a very terrible record,
you
by the
guys
way.
only, I mean, we're gonna get into this later, but you guys only did one record?
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short story when we get to that, but
I just,
why?
I feel, so everyone listening, so John fucking, we're gonna talk about Beefcake, and then he was also in the Ataris for, what year did you get in there? 2002?
One,
2001, and how long were you in the Ataris?
I left in 2008, April, I think it
Wow,
was.
that's a long
Yep.
fucking time. That was before, I guess I could say this before. Is that during or before or after the crazy started?
The way before the what started?
Before the crazy started.
No, the crazy was there from day fucking one.
I guess it just wasn't in everyone's face until that one album came out where he did like a My Bloody Valentine style record, and we are like, what?
Oh, I would. That was Welcome to Night. Yes, I was. I wrote a lot of songs on that record, but yeah, we can get back. Yeah, that's a whole. I mean, I can get into that later as well. I mean, the thinking behind it. Actually, it's funny because when we get to it, the thinking behind it wasn't that crazy. You know what I mean? It's just something that I think
Well, I think that a
as
lot of
as we'll
people.
talk about, you'll people kind of will get the idea of what was going on.
Well, I think that the problem is that when you start in a certain genre and you're playing or you're recording X amount of records that have a sound, and all of a sudden you have one that goes in like left field, everyone's just like, "What the fuck happened?" It's kind of like Saves a Day. They had three albums. Like the first one where they're figuring it out, Through Being Cool came out, and I was like, "Okay, they got their footing." And then, uh, Christ, what's the third one? Uh, did you like Saves the Day at all?
No, that one song. I won't
Ah,
sing it for Christ's sakes, but yeah, there was a
great.
few songs I liked. But I mean, I get what you're saying, and what I was going to get to later, which I will now. You've already ruined it, Mike. Was that
We can wait.
the problem is when you make a record. Let's just say, because for example, So Long Astoria was made. We were writing it. I mean, and Chris was the main writer of them. The majority of the songs. I wrote some songs for that record, but he was the majority songwriter on most of the records of the Ataris, but particularly on that record, he was already putting songs in the can in 2001. Okay, so that record didn't come out until 2003. Right,
Wow.
so between 2001 and 2003, you may go through some different changes in taste
Yeah.
and listening to different things and things that inspire you. So even back in 2001, Chris, for all the things that I could say against him, he had a very large, uh, what's the word? He had
Catalog.
this exactly. He had a huge catalog of music that he listened to, for sure. That was not bullshit. He definitely dealt, and he introduced me to a ton of bands, and that was a catalyst to why we eventually started to go that route. I think we really started to get. I mean, because you think in 2001, in that scene that even with Beefcake, I mean, just even talking about gear, it was a guitar, maybe a tuner, and an amp.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you played. Everybody, right? And then
Well, hold on, let's be honest
start.
though. Let's talk about the gear there for a second though. It was a Mesa Boogie Head if it was that genre probably, or a Marshall
Oh, for
GCM.
sure. No doubt. But I mean,
Yeah.
there was very little room for exploration,
Yeah.
right? Your tone was your tone, and it was 10 years of fast beats of
Well,
that record's music.
it's like going to your favorite restaurant consistently. You know what you like to order off the menu, and all of a sudden you show up one day and they're like an Italian restaurant. They're like, "Hey, we are now
Middle
fucking
Eastern, yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like
something just
yeah, we're
we're
serving fucking
sushi. Yeah, we're
we're doing
sushi now.
sushi now." And you're like, "What the fuck?" You're like, "My comfort zone isn't here." But you're like, "Yeah, but I'm a good chef. I can create different stuff." You're like, "I don't fucking want that. That's not what I'm buying."
True, but again, the people that were at the restaurant could have been for years thinking like, man, I really love sushi. I'm really tired of this Italian shit.
That's true.
And you think that as somebody in the band, you honestly think that the people that are your fans, the people that really love your music, you really think for a second, no matter what we do, they're going to like it. They're going to want to come with us on whatever journey we're going to try and
You
do.
think
You
that.
know,
You think
you
that.
think that, and
Yeah.
then the reality slaps you in the face, and and especially in that genre. In that genre, you are not, especially back then, you are not allowed to do that. You have to do what
Exactly.
they tell you to do. Now, of course, you go through the backlash of even joining, signing to a major label was a no-no, and all the crying and bitching that went on with that
Yeah.
in mind. But you know what I'm saying? So the thing is for years, we're thinking already of different tones and different sounds and inspired by different things. So by the time we start writing new material, and it's, well, So Long Astoria is coming out, we're already writing songs for Welcome to Night, even though we're not even thinking about it. But we are. I mean, after the whole whirlwind of that record and touring, I came home 2 years later, and then I went to John DeClario's studio and started recording these really weird, spacey rock songs. And that was the catalyst to Welcome to Night. It could be my fault, but it was something that Chris always wanted to do. That opened him up to really doing some more stuff as well. And, obviously it took 4 friggin' years for that record to come out, and
Yeah.
then it to kind of take a huge dump commercially. But if I look back at it, the two things I think mostly are, it is the best record that we put out, and in my view, and also it was the most punk rock thing to do because
Yeah.
we didn't give a fuck. Believe me, we lost our label over it. We lost a lot of things over it, and maybe subconsciously it was because of the whole Boys of Summer thing as well. You
I
know what I
think
mean?
I think like one thing though is that to really point out is that the majority, I'd say like 99, 95% of the people listening to bands, besides other people who are in bands, which is a small percentage, are people who are doing the 9 to 5, not creating shit full time. They could be creating this, but it's not full time. They're not on tour all the time. When you live in that, so if you live in that, I drive from my house to my office and sit in fucking traffic, go back and forth. I have time to just live in this little bubble and have my fucking opinion on things. But then when you're living completely off of that grid and you're going, I tour all the time, people are like loving the shit that I do, I'm actually getting success, I'm making money off of this. I think you have a different fucking mindset. And that's where you're like, I just live in this world, and you can get bored in that world and go, I need to advance on this because there is a cutoff date of when you probably aren't going to be able to do that anymore, which I think majority of bands that happen to them, and some of them, it's a very small percentage that still get to do that, but that you just live in that space. So when you present your head to people of that space, people are like, well, we don't understand this. It's like, yeah, well, you didn't live in that headspace for 10, 20 fucking years.
Of course. And like I said, it was going on behind the scenes for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally for years. We were sitting on certain songs and sounds and trying to, you know, just explore different things and whatnot. But,
I want to lead us up there because I don't want to make this about the Ataris and Chris. Like, I want to talk about you because I think you have a lot of great stories. I want to talk about Beefcake, which a lot of people listening to this, there's an audience now that is outside of New Jersey. They won't be like, who's Beefcake? But I mean,
no. There's like
they're
2 kids in Wisconsin.
yeah, but those 2 kids are gonna lose their fucking minds when they see this that you're being interviewed. But there's a giant Jersey fan base, and last week you and I were talking really quickly when this wasn't recording and was shitting the bed. We're talking about Serial Killer. We're talking about the comp. We're talking about how the placement of you guys' song in that comp, and we pointed that out. We talk about like fucking Fearless Records, and so you guys, when I found out about you guys, it was you would pop up on bills where we would play or I'd go, and you guys always showed up. And I just remember you guys were just like super fucking funny dudes. I just felt like you never gave a fuck, and you were just like these. I don't know how to explain it. I think like one time I said I was like yeah, I was like kind of intimidated by you guys because you just seemed like very just like you weren't like mean, but you just seemed like you could kick the shit out of anybody. That was always my opinion back
Guys that were
then.
5'4".
Yeah.
And Jack was 5'9", but he sat down. So because that's the drummer. But well, I mean, the whole thing. I mean, I could take you back. The brief history of Beefcake was
But no, but like I do want to go back prior to this because I want to get people to know you and talk about you and go back as I structure this. So I like go back to an origin of what got you into music, what got you into punk rock, how it led to the band, talk about some tour stories, lead that into some Atari stuff. Like I really want to. It's a whole origins thing, as I say all the time. So I want to start there before you know, go from the middle of what I'm trying to do here.
where you want me to go.
Yeah, I would fuck up my structure, man. But yeah, I want to work up to that.
This is
So,
my show, Mike.
dude, I am not fucking with Beefcake.
No, it will bite your kneecaps.
But I want to go back to when you were a kid. Like, tell me about when you were young and when music just caught your attention, and then we're gonna progress to being like, and then that led to like punk rock.
Yeah, well, it was easy. The music was always in my house from anytime I can remember. My parents put me in front of a piano at 6 to take lessons. I took lessons for about 8 or 9 years. Of
Oh
course, I
wow,
hated it.
no shit.
Uh, I hated it. Yeah, I mean, well, you're a kid. I lived in a neighborhood with a bunch of other kids, and I had to ride my bike to the piano teacher's house, and I'm like trying to hide my books all the time because I just felt embarrassed that I just didn't think piano was kind of a cool thing. My brother played drums. Now that was cool, right? So, but the thing was, is that music was just prevalent. But I can remember my sister is 6 years older than me, so she was the one that would bring the music in first, and she was a huge AC/DC fan. So I was like in second or third grade, just rocking to AC/DC. Highway to Hell, Let There Be Rock.
Yeah.
We had Black Sabbath records, we had Van Halen records, but then of course, as my brother was a drummer, Rush was a, I'm like literally in the third grade listening to Permanent Waves. Like these were the pinnacle records of my youth. 2112, Exit Stage Left, all that stuff. Kansas, all those big rock bands with a lot of musical stuff, which is funny because I'm a hack musician, and you would think listening to all that stuff I would be phenomenal. Which my brother became a fantastic drummer. I always say that my willingness to just pursue and excel in anything I do far outweighs my talent. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
if you took piano for so long, like you have an understanding of theory,
I
most likely.
I totally understood theory and notes and stuff like that. So it wasn't until I was about 16 my dad finally gave me a guitar, and like every other kid, just I was playing Boston songs, and
Hell yeah.
yeah,
Fuck yeah.
it wasn't long after that I was really just trying to learn metal. This was 1986, 87.
The good old
And I'm
days.
just trying to pick off Metallica songs and stuff like that. But it wasn't really until 1989 specifically that a friend that I met, he moved from South Jersey, go figure. He moved to New York, and pardon me, sorry. He moved to New York, and he had a bunch of CDs, and it was stuff that I've never heard before. And of course, one of the first things I've ever heard out of that batch of CDs was Fugazi.
Yeah.
And that, people say they have these moments where music changes their direction in life and shapes them and whatnot. And that, of course, was 13 songs, but it was 2 EP tapes back then that we had. They weren't even CDs, they were tapes.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was listening to. And it was so bizarre. You know what I mean? If you just think about it, it just was so foreign to me. And for some reason, it spoke to me. That's what happens sometimes. Music speaks to people in weird ways. And I got
Was
hooked
there
on that.
was there a rebellious part of you though? Because you said the piano, like you were embarrassed by it and
Not when I was a kid. No, I was a good kid. My parents would beat the shit out of me. Are you kidding me?
oh jeez.
They were tough. Yeah. No, I didn't mess around.
Okay. But did you find though that that like listening to Fugazi and these bands like it was such the opposite side of the spectrum of the shit you were playing?
Sort of, but I didn't have teenage angst like a lot
Interesting.
of kids do. Listen, if you're going to ask me about people that I know personally, right, that are talented musicians, right, people we both probably know who they are, and I know them personally.
Yeah.
Strange people. They have different, have a different mindset. Most of them have social anxiety or social problems, right? I did not have that. I could socially adapt I had friends in high school. I wasn't the lonely kid in high school. I didn't get picked on. You know, I wasn't. I didn't have that sort of thing where most you hear the story of most musicians. Oh, I was a lonely kid. I got picked on. Fuck everybody. Blah 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 blah. Nah, my parents were hardworking people who taught us to work hard, taught us not to take shit from people. I was happy. I wasn't a miserable kid. I think punk rock to me though, when I got into it, it wasn't more of a rebellion thing. It was a freedom thing in some ways. Because now we're slowly talking about my almost time in Beefcake was realizing that when I went to college in the early '90s that I was finding people that looked like me, right? That
Yeah.
dressed like me.
Yeah.
And then I realized that this wasn't just about music. This was, and we all know, right, in the '90s especially, this was a lifestyle. The punk rock scene was a lifestyle. It wasn't buy your cool clothes in the punk rock section of Kohl's. It was right.
Yeah.
Now there was gear, right? People had Junkos and those big like BB necklaces, those silver BB that ball necklaces. So there was like a kind of a uniform look to people, but there was a shit ton of them, right? I mean, this wasn't just like a small section of people, and they were all over the country. Eventually, I realized these kids were everywhere. They weren't in the cities, right? They were in the suburbs.
Yeah.
All these kids. This was a movement, and this was then it was a lifestyle. So it was a mentality and a lifestyle.
So did you ever, when you were growing up and you were playing piano for a really long time and your dad got you a guitar, was there a point where you were thinking, yeah, I want this to be my thing. Like I want to do this and
Not really.
huh.
Nope. No. When I was in high school, my thoughts were I wanted to be like the movie Wall Street. I wanted to be Bud Fox. I wanted to go make money.
Oh shit.
I wanted to be a broker or something weird and I actually did for a short time.
Did you?
I did work. Yeah, I worked in the commodities exchange for a year in four-wheel trade. Yep, 1996.
Wait, so this was before Beefcake then?
Just as I was joining them. Yep, 95, 96.
So how old were you in
Yeah,
96?
24.
Oh, okay. Oh wow,
I
man. So
think
you had okay, so let's lead up to that real
I
quick
was
though.
old.
Yep. You were what? It cut off over you?
Yeah, you were old. Me, yeah,
I was
we
like,
were
oh
old.
man, you're an old man.
Yeah, I think it was about 24 at that time. Yeah, I wanted to work and make money. I didn't want to live in a van and I didn't know anything about that.
I'm so intrigued now because I thought that you were like the same age as us.
Listen, in 95, I was working at the commodities exchange, but a year prior or whatever, I was at the NoFX show when they were on tour for Punk and Drublic. So it's like I was still
Wow.
a punk, but I just like I worked. You know what I mean? I never not worked. I never was the panhandling punk type.
Wait a
Woe
minute,
is
hold
me.
on. So I'm so fascinated by this because you by the time 96 rolls around, you're 24, and the scene that I'm focused on is like the late 90s into 2000 because that's where my viewpoint
Right. Well,
started, right?
right. And when in '96 is really, and believe me, when I walked into it, I didn't start it, but I was definitely a part of building it with the other bands. So in '96, what happened was well, I'll even go in about 95, I'm
Yeah.
going to say maybe 94, 95. What really opened my eyes, what happened is that I was playing music. I was playing music with some other friends, and it was like a really bad kind of alternative '90s band that I was just playing guitar from. You know what I mean? I just wanted to play. I was like jamming with these guys, and we did a show in a church in Middletown, New York, and this band Lounge played. I
Nice.
didn't know those guys. I knew Roy. I knew Roy from college, from Orange County Community College. So I didn't know him personally, but I knew who he was. So it was his band, but John McClary was the drummer. Kip Count was the singer, and I think Storm Sasaki was the bass player at that time. But anyway, the
Oh wow.
point is that I was like, holy shit, there's a punk rock band in Orange County. And now I had hope because that's what I listened to, at the time. Now, in 94, 95, I'd had whatever was current in the Fat Records catalog and the Epitaph catalog. I owned it, right? So when it was Good Riddance, Strung Out, No Effects,
Yeah.
any of the bands. That's what Lagwagon, of course, and that's what I was fully embraced in. And I saw these guys play, and I was like, oh my god, but fast drummer. This is insane, right? John Sloppy or whatever he was doing. And I was like, that's promising that there's some people that play. So I've known Phil Thomas from Beefcake since I was, I don't know, man, like seriously, I must have been 8 or 9 years old. I've known Phil forever. He grew up in the same neighborhood as me, but he went to Catholic school, which probably is why he's so fucked up. But yeah, he went to Catholic school up until the 8th grade. So I didn't really see Phil until we were in high school. He's 1 year older than me. And then we went to college together. We went away to Delhi together. So I was Phil's roommate for a while in college. So I've known Phil for a long time. So we always had the connection of wanting to play, and we were always into the same kind of music for the most part. Phil was definitely more he was a Social Distortion guy, a Slayer guy.
Nice.
He also loved the humor of all things and music as well. And he was always just inherently a funny dude. He had like that George Carlin take on life. Everything was funny. He could make fun of anything. You know what I mean? Nothing was off limits.
Yeah, I love that.
Women, children, the handicapped. He didn't give a fuck. He thought it was funny no matter what. Not cruel, but funny. That's all. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And when I saw that band play, I remember kind of hitting him up and being like, hell, man, we got to try and play. We literally just play covers together. Well, whatever it was, even Green Day covers, of course. We had little amps and guitars and whatever. And then in 1996, we rented a house together in Washingtonville, New York. And we started going to shows, and one of the shows that I saw was in a garage in Blooming Grove, New York, which is where I grew up. It was a garage show packed with fucking kids. Now I'm in a place where there's kids like us, right? And most of them are a little bit younger, packed. I'm talking, when I say packed, there's like 60 to 100 kids in this garage.
Yeah.
And then this band from New Jersey called Bigwig plays. And of course, at that time, other than watching NoFX at a bigger club, seeing them so close in such a small proximity was the closest thing to a Fat Records band that I've ever seen at the time.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, dude. I think a lot of people can have their first bigwig story, like when they see them first time, they're like, holy shit, this is in front of me. These guys are going crazy.
So explosive. And Matt Gray was walking around selling shit out of a box. And that was before they played. And I'm always the guy that's like, get the fuck away from me, dude. So maybe you're right. Maybe I do have a chip on my shoulder. But I literally was, because he's so friendly, but he looked like a fucking, he looked like a Muppet from like the Muppet Show, like the janitor from the fucking Muppet Show.
He looks like Animal without the beard.
Actually, you're right. He looked like Animal with a box selling, hey man, you want to buy this punk rock? No, get the fuck away from me. And I'm like, where did this guy come from? That was what my whole thing was like. I know people from this town. Who the hell is this guy? And then when he got up in the Spider-Man suit and just ripped, I was just like, holy shit.
Yep.
And it was funny. It was like, I felt like, oh man, I got to play with these guys someday and blah, 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 blah. That was just a funny story because what happened was we got this house in Washingtonville and then we started to go to shows, Phil and I, any local shows that we could go to. And we were meeting people, and some of the bands would come back and party with us at our house. Now, right before, so it was in 96, I knew Chris Hughes from Cooter Autopilot Off. I met Chris probably in 94 in college. And we were just friends, we just became friends. And I knew, again, love of music, right? Same style and whatnot.
Wait, this is Chris Cooter?
Yeah, Chris Cooter.
Okay.
So he told me that he had played with these guys in this band, and that, and I said, well, I have the house. Why don't you guys come by and let's jam? And I was excited because I was like, man, they're going to bring a drummer that can play fast. I never played with anybody. Phil and I had these goofy songs, and basically we just did a big jam. I can't remember, but I think it was just the five of us. It was Phil Robinson, Chris Johnson, Chris Hughes, Phil Thomas, and myself. And we just jammed, and it was glorious, right? It's probably the worst thing you've ever heard, but it was so much fun. And that really was the catalyst. And then, you know, those guys were helpful because they were like, hey, you know, your songs are cool. Like, you got to find some dudes to play with. And they knew these two guys, young dudes. I don't even know if one of them was in high school still. I think he graduated, but their names were Matt Buck and Adam Bach. We call them Buck Bach Overdrive.
Okay.
And they were from Monroe. And so in the winter, so December of '96, they came over to our house, and we just started jamming some songs that Phil had. You know, I can't remember which ones they were, but they were probably bad and they were goofy and they were probably about shitting his pants and whatever. And you know, we're laughing, having a good time. And you know, after like 4 or 5 songs, it was kind of like one of those pauses. And those guys, we were like to the guys, like, so what do you think? You want to play? And they're like, yeah, sure. What's the name of the band? And Phil was just like, Beefcake. And literally, we were just like, okay, that's it. There's no deep thought into it. This is before, obviously, South Park and all that
Wait,
kind
is
of
this
shit.
before, at this time, you're working on Wall Street?
I had just quit. It was after, so I worked there in '95 for a full year into '96. I had stopped and I worked on you know, those Boar's Head trucks,
Yeah.
right? The provisions. I worked on one of those for 7 years. I did about 4 years on, then I quit, had a bad fallout with my boss, worked in Wall Street, and then I came back and worked back on the truck for another 3 years until I left to tour. So I used to work these crazy hours, like 60-hour weeks. It was
So
nuts.
that was after Wall Street.
That was after. Yep. So
Okay,
from
okay, this is
95
okay. This is I want to say this is why I'm so fascinated by this. Every story I've heard, typically, I mean, granted, I've done this is like 70 something, which is like not even the splash in the wait, drop in the pot, drop in the barrel,
Mhm.
whatever. This is like not even a giant percentage of people who have done bands. Typically, the story goes high school, young kid, found punk rock, high school, started a band, started playing in a band from high school into my 20s, and then from there decided if it was going anywhere or not. You went from I don't want to fucking do that shit. I want to play. I want to be on Wall Street. You go do that, and you're like, oh, I'll just play in this band for a little bit or play with a buddy, and then it progresses kind of in this. It goes in a way because I mean the story. I mean, obviously, as I know the whole timeline, it's like Beefcake and like Ataris and touring and recording his albums and stuff. It's just fascinating to me that you were in when I was 24, I was done with music and I was going towards, you know,
Now I'm
yeah,
so late.
you went you went completely backwards. Like I was like I want to start a career and do this shit, and you were like I don't want to fucking do this. I'm gonna give this up, play music, and work in a boar's head truck and play
Well,
music.
yeah,
Like
we did whatever. Phil was a roofer. I mean,
it's
his
incredible.
job was miserable. And then actually, Phil did that forever. He just actually stopped recently. But like, yeah, we did shit jobs, whatever we could. And you know what was funny is because we made money. You know what I mean? Like, so when
Yeah.
we worked, we made money. It wasn't like we were poor. So people were always scratching their heads when we showed up with, because eventually we of course had Mesa Boogie heads, and then um, we had bought Paul Reed Smith guitars. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
people were like, who the hell is this band playing this ridiculous songs with the sickest gear? Right? But that's because we worked.
Okay,
I mean, with
okay.
money.
I have to say this just because you had said that you guys were like shorter band, right? Okay.
Very.
Okay. So, do you remember the movie Roger Rabbit?
I mean, I do, but I was probably an adult when it came out.
Okay. So, I remember always thinking this, and I feel like you're gonna get the joke.
Careful, Mike.
There's a scene where the detective Eddie, what's his face, he's walking in, and then these dudes are walking by, and they're like Vikings, but they're shorter than him, and they're not on the camera, and they're walking past him, but they're aggressive, right?
Hmm.
So I always felt like when Beefcake showed up, it reminded me of that.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, I could see that for sure.
But it was like the dude, because you guys were a shorter band. Again, I'm really not trying to be a dick, but you had said that. I was like, yeah, I do remember you guys were. That's why I was like, they were a shorter band, but super like just. I was like, I don't want to fuck with these guys. I mean, granted, I wasn't an aggressive person at all, but I always remember I had to say that just because I felt like you could get the joke, and you're also
Of
very far
course.
away from me right now and not gonna kick my ass.
Well,
But it's like when you guys were coming in with your gear, it was like you guys had this fucking killer gear, and you'd get
yeah,
up and just like fucking rock out, and we're like, who the fuck are these guys? Like they just give a shit when they're playing.
well, I think that was one thing that people would notice. Like, oh, what the hell? Where? Like a lot of people would go, where the fuck do you get that guitar? I'm like, I worked.
Worked my fucking ass off for
That's
60
what I
hours this week.
Yeah,
That's what
man.
I fucking did.
Yeah, I mean that was part of it. But we got together, and our first show was I think in February of '97, and it was in Middletown. Oh my God, the Eclipse. That's what it was called. Of course, it was a pinnacle kind of club for a lot of the bands in Orange County to play. Now, just prior to that, though, as we did start the band in '96 in December, I remember going to a show in Greenwood Lake, New York. I think it was called the Emerald. They were throwing shows, and I went there, and there was a lot of fucking kids. It wasn't our show. It was another local show, and I had seen these guys. Well, Lounge played the show. That's why I went. That's where I think I met John, and probably through Chris Hughes. And then I saw a band called 99 Cents play.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
they were a little more aggressive. They had a different style. They were more street punk rock band. And it's funny why I mentioned all these bands, because eventually, like a lot of scenes, there was a great divide in Orange County between whose side are you on?
Interesting.
Between the Oh yeah,
Wait,
huge,
talk
small.
about that. I because I didn't get yeah. Talk about like that whole like that scene up there because I got the perspective of Jersey and all these different cities from all these interviews, but I don't think I've ever talked about New York State's scene.
The New York State scene was uh, primarily it was lounge, cooter, beefcake, 99 cents. Of course, you had All Out War, who were a victory band at the
Yeah,
time,
that
a
was.
metal band.
Well, then you also had
Um,
like Snapcase from Buffalo and wasn't Strife? No, they were
right, but I mean,
California.
in Orange County, then itself, then you had there was a small band, a band called Skippy that was from Warwick that played for a little bit. And there was, I mean, I'm going to be missing. There was a whole bunch of bands. EBS was another band I remember playing a lot. There was another whole group of guys called the Town Hall. It was like a venue or a spot where these dudes in Monroe. There was a bunch of bands in Monroe that played. They had their own scene. It was like almost like three scenes in within one. You know what I mean?
So was that
And
the
what was
competition you were talking about? You're like
you
which
know,
side do you want? Like you said something before I mentioned that.
that was the thing about Orange County was the big place to play was really the Chance in Poughkeepsie. So that was it's an hour away, but it was the biggest venue where any big bands would play outside of then when the skate park started doing big shows.
Okay.
We'll get to that. And the Avalon, that was another whole thing. But your whole thing was to get to the Chance and open up for whoever, you know what I mean, Metascopheles or Murphy's Law was the big shows,
Yep.
right? You had to get on that. And, you would have to get tickets, 100 tickets, and sell them outside like an idiot. And just
Yeah.
that's what you got paid, which is fine, but whatever. But I think what happened was is that, Chris Hughes and Cooter, Chris always was like the guy that would push to the extremes. He was a marketing guru. He was the guy that just knew how to market his band and get Cooter eventually to autopilot off to where they were.
Which Chris was Chris Hughes? Chris was the guitar player, not the singer.
To this day, one of my closest friends in the
But
world.
but he was the lead guitarist or he was the
Guitar
singer? Okay,
He
yes.
was a guitar player. Yeah,
Okay.
Chris Johnson was a singer. So Chris Hughes was very great at getting himself in the right place at the right time. And that caused a bit of a rift between him and the guys in the 99 Cent side who used to kind of dominate the shows at the Chance. So that's really what it came down to, was who could get the best shows at the Chance. Because eventually then Chris would get like the Get Up Kids show or MXPX, and you know he was just good at getting the right shows.
It sounds like
And
he
that
was like the Gabe of like New York.
kind of, but he wasn't a promoter. He was just a promoter of his own band. He just knew what to do. He knew how to get his band from the basement to a major label, which is what he did. But
Yeah.
and then of course I became very tight with the 99 Cent guys, and it just got weird. It was dumb, and then it was kind of one of those things like who are you going to play with, what show are you going to take, and
It
it
was late
all,
teenager, fucking early 20s bullshit that we
yeah,
all went fucking through, and we all
it's
realize it.
rivalry. But you know how I got out of it? Well, we signed a deal and fucking left, and that's basically how I got out of it. But the thing was, in '97 when I played that first show, we played in front of kids. Like most people that play shows, their first show didn't play in front of anybody.
Yeah.
There was like 40 kids there, you know what I mean? And it took them like 4 or 5 songs into it to understand who we were and what we were doing. And I remember these kids kind of like dancing for the first time and like, and I was like, holy shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Those crazy, weird moments. And then the next show we played was at that Emerald with Bigwig. And that was a huge fucking deal. And I remember we played and there was like a couple hundred kids there. It was crazy. And we played and got a decent response. And I remember Tom coming right up to me and being like, holy shit, you guys are fucking, what the hell was that? Like he loved it. He thought it was hysterical, and we were fast and aggressive. And, of course, Phil was Phil and had a mouth on him and just would say all sorts of fucked up shit. So, and yeah. And that became a friendship which I'm still friends with Tom all these years later.
Well, you
You
guys
know,
were so, I mean, when, like I said, when I saw you guys like that's Bigwig was the first, when we got into playing actual shows, our first show ever was, I talked a bunch of times, it was in Bordentown with Bigwig and Boxcar and Shower with Goats, and that's where I saw Bigwig for the
was,
first time. Yeah, it was amazing. But then it led to playing these shows, and we'd show up and Bigwig would play, and anytime they were there, they'd have the comps or whatever, their CDs, and and like and Go Fuck Yourself Records, GY. What was
yep,
Tom's record? GFS? What the?
GFY. Yep.
GFY. Yeah, it was GFY Records. And didn't he have a comp that he put out, or was it just the band's with solo, like not
I
a compilation?
remember, well, we did something for him as well. We did like a 7-inch
Yeah,
that we
that
printed
was it.
with his label on it, which wouldn't, I still have like 400 downstairs.
Do you really?
So
It's amazing.
it's like, it was the first thing we ever did, really. You know what I mean? So,
But
yeah, it
like,
didn't really go
but it's
anywhere.
like you guys were. I just remember you guys being attached to like Bigwig. It was like a crew. Like you had said in New
Yes,
York, like
it
which side were you
was.
on? I mean, I was like to me, it wasn't like said out loud. It was like a Fearless Records crew, and or like there was like you guys and Bigwig and who the fuck else? Like, I mean, I always thought like, like even though Lounge and Cooter weren't on Fearless, I always put all you guys together, obviously, because I think it was because you were from New York.
Yeah, no, and I mean, those were the bands that stood out the most and got the most exposure and played the most shows and did
Yeah,
the most work. I mean, I would attach myself to Bigwig a couple of reasons. One, because we got along with them, and they would anytime they played up by us, whether we played with them or not, they came back to our house and we just partied all night.
it's awesome.
So that was a big thing. But the other fact is that because Tom and those guys, they had a crowd. So of course, if I could, get myself a show with Bigwig anywhere, that was definitely a plus for us. I remember at one time they had asked us to do a quick tour in Florida because those guys were always notorious for like calling the day before and be like, "We're leaving tomorrow, come on." And I was always like, "I'm in," and then I just couldn't get anybody else to do it. So, yeah, I mean, again, my tenacity to try and push the band far outweighed the talent I had. And now here's the thing about Beefcake: it was kind of a joke band. Um, but I was so fucking serious, so serious, dead serious. I
Well,
was dead serious,
obviously,
like Chris Hughes. We were both dead serious to get our bands out of Orange County, and to be once I saw other bands that you know what it is, Mike. You can go and see No Effects play, and it's sort of like an untouchable band.
yeah.
The bands that you go see, in the city back in the day, those are the bands that are untouchable.
Oh
They're
yeah,
just the bands that you
you would
don't even think that you're ever going to get to that
you
level.
would see
That's
them on the stage at Roseland, which was huge to me. I mean, I don't even really know how big Roseland was. Back then, it was like a stadium, and then Irving Plaza to me was giant, even
exactly.
though it's small.
Yeah, Irving Plaza. What was the other one? Oh my God, we used to call it the Sweatlands.
Oh,
Wetlands.
Wetlands,
Wetlands was
yeah.
another.
Even though
Uh,
that was super small, but like when you saw a band up there, there was such a detachment from you to them that you were like, they are gods.
Stone Pony, right? Where you go to Stone Pony and see in the inside these bands. But now here was the thing: when I would see a band, there was a band called Fun Size, which was
Yeah, I interviewed James.
James, right?
Yeah,
James, River City High.
met a
I
few.
met James in 1996, 97. He was touring and played in Middletown. He came back and stayed at my house. And that really was one of those moments. I remember, I was like, man, this guy, you know what he's doing tomorrow? He's going to play a show.
Yeah.
And then the day after that, he's going to play a show. That was really when it clicked to me like, I got to do this.
Why
This
did,
was
but why did that, like,
mission.
why were you drawn to that so much?
I don't know, man. I just, you know what it is? And I tell people that have never done it before. When you play on stage, right? And now it mostly works. It mostly works when you're playing in front of a lot, not a lot, but when you play in front of people that kind of understand and are in tune with what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's that 30 minutes and it's a drug, and it's where you're in tune. Like you and the audience are like one and the same, and nothing else matters. You don't think of anything. You don't think of your bills. You don't think of your dying dog. You don't think of anything.
Yeah.
It's the one time in your life where you are completely focused and in that spot of what you really want to do. I mean, that's hard to explain, but it is
Oh, I
an
get it, dude.
addiction.
Trust me.
It's
I
totally,
I totally understand exactly that. I'm just fascinated to. It's interesting to hear someone's perspective of how they see that, but you're right, it is a drug, and you do. It's the only time in your life where, especially nowadays, where we didn't have phones back then and computers.
oh my God, we toured with a fucking Rand McNally.
Yeah.
and these papers from our booking agent and used payphones. And yeah, it was awesome.
But talk about being in the moment, though. Like, you're right, when you're on stage, when you're playing and the lights are on, and you see someone sing your song, like, you are the most in that moment of your life than you are at
Why?
any other time.
Why?
And
It's and because
it's
touring
amazing.
sucks. In terms of when I say touring sucks, like
In between.
23 hours of the day spent mostly driving,
Yeah.
bad sleep, bad food. This is before you even get into the bus. Bad sleep, bad food. Best time of your life.
Yeah.
Best, especially if you're doing it with your friends. If you're doing it with people that aren't your friends, and you're in a situation where it's just kind of like enhancing your career, which of course, I mean, Ataris were half and half for me. You know, they were my friends, but it was different. You know, Phil was my brother. You know what I mean? Like, I loved Phil and Tom and Jack. These guys, we would fight, and then an hour later, we're eating Wendy's together.
Yeah.
We're sharing our last cigarettes together, and we're trying to fucking score some weed in the sketchy neighborhood in Columbus together. Getting mad. We were pirates, and we did it together. You know, when you get bigger, when things get bigger, there's more people involved. There's more separation between everybody. It's a lot. It's way different. I
Talk
couldn't
about
imagine. I couldn't imagine success with Beefcake. Somebody probably would have been hurting from like drinking too much or something. It was,
just sounds like me now when I'm touring.
yeah,
Um,
it was
but how did you guys? Okay, but okay, so you had one record out besides the vinyl with GFY Records with Tom.
correct. Well, so shortly after that, we wound up the two guys that Adam and Matt. Matt, he went to college and just he was a phenomenal like player. He was actually way too good to even be playing with us. Adam just didn't really want to leave. You know, he was comfortable being home and being in Orange County, and he had no ambitions to be in a touring band, and that's fine.
Yeah.
To this day, anytime I see Adam, which I do occasionally, it's amazing. I love him. It's funny. We just talk about fun times and whatever. But then Tom Scudora was our bass player. He was a true definition of a punk rock. That kid, he was basically homeless. He probably had warrants out for his arrest. He had his own gear. I used to call him Oscar the Grouch. Like I felt like he lived in a garbage can and looked like Oscar the Grouch. Sick skateboarder and just wanted to live that life, man. And he was down no matter what. Oh, down like 100%. Jack, we met through, I think we met him through, God, I wonder if it was Jeremy Hernandez, because he played with Jer in Sticker. Remember
Okay.
that band Sticker?
Yep.
So that's where we got Jack from. And again, Jack was a pothead back then, and he pretty much still is right now. And again, a guy that he never complained, not fucking once, ever. Worst conditions, Jack never complained. So it was great to have that kind of group. Tom complained a lot. So anyway, once we got together, what happened was obviously the Joanna Hackett story of serial killer. We met her through Tom.
So talk about that, because I want, yeah, like go into that, because but this is before Fearless, that you got signed to Fearless, so right?
Correct.
Okay, so go into that.
Yeah, simple introduction. He was with Joanna at some show probably where I don't remember, but it was one of those things where we saw the shirts, probably stickers, and we're like, oh, that's cool. And it was a thing where I don't think we wanted to like attack her, like, oh, can you get shit for us? We think we played it pretty cool with her because she was cool.
Yeah.
And it was like, you knew the vibe right away. You didn't have to fake it and all this stuff. And then we kept in touch, and then she came back with that dude, Gary, I think his name was. He worked with her, and he was a nut job. Really cool, crazy, but
He was the
totally
guy. Wait, who was her partner, right?
Oh, he wasn't a partner, but he was like one of their sales guys. Like, he just worked and helped build the brand.
Okay.
And then what we did is we sent them some songs that we had recorded, was probably from that 7-inch, and they absolutely. Well, we may have did another batch of songs. I can't remember. Whatever we sent to them, we sent that to them, and I think we sent them an underwear that looked like we shit in it. Like, yeah, or a diaper with like fake shit in it, or look like we shit in it. Yeah, we sent that in the mail to them.
Fantastic marketing.
Yeah, and they loved it, of course. They thought it was the greatest thing. They were like, we're playing this here at the shop every day. Now, you got to remember, not many people really, not everybody got us, so it was a slow build. But to hear that from those folks, and then, of course, they sent us boxes of shit, and that was it, man. And we were so stoked to get something, and especially something that really fit who our band was, because we were jokey, we were not politically correct, and to get boxes of clothes was awesome. So anyway, then of course the comp idea comes, and they just say, hey, can we use one of your songs for comp? They didn't say you're going to be number 3. They didn't say anything. They just said, do you want to be on this comp? It was like, well, yes, of course. Whatever song you like, we don't care. So they took I Want to Be a Proctologist, which
Amazing.
Of course is just, not your everyday title in the song. That comp comes out, and yes, and on Fearless, and yes, floored that we were number 3. So we knew no matter what, people are gonna listen to this song.
Yeah.
And of course, as a quote unquote business guy, whatever I was back then, I was thinking that, of course, to be on a high profile comp and be third, you're gonna stumble across it. Now, what happened was, I told you last time, any press that came in on that comp, it was great comp, number 3 song, worst thing I've ever heard, great comp. Number 3 song, who the hell are these guys? Is amazing. It didn't matter. It was either the worst thing they've ever heard or the best thing they ever heard.
But it was that third song. That's all that matters in press, because people were like interested in, what is this thing? I have to hear it now, even if it's the worst thing. It was mentioned.
Now, of course, Bob from Fearless, he put that comp out. So between Tom, of course, was a big champion of our band, saying, hey, Bob, I know these fucking guys, and they're worth it. And they he probably talked us up a bit, because, of course, we had never left really the East Coast ever.
Yeah.
And what happened was that it was a long story. It took quite a long time, because Bob had a volatile relationship with Tom. And anytime Tom and Bob would get in fights, he would call me up and be like, sorry, man, I don't think I can work with you.
Oh,
Seriously.
wow.
Yeah, and then I got Joanna involved, and she yelled at him. And then we finally got a record deal in it was 98. We got the record deal. And when I say deal, it was a legit deal. I just didn't know anything about it. We took it to a real lawyer. We went to the city, sat with this guy, don't even remember his name. I think he was a hardcore lawyer, but like a hardcore band lawyer. Yeah. He was a real lawyer. It wasn't like some fucking my dad's friend. He was a real dude. He really chopped up the contract to where when Bob got it back from us, he flipped his shit. And he's like, you don't want to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Bob, listen, I don't know nothing about this shit. Can you just walk it through with me? You know what I mean? Because I never heard the words in perpetuity. Yeah, I didn't know what the fuck that meant, which is forever.
Oh, okay.
But, people get hard on, oh, you're going to own my masters forever. Like, listen, in 10 years, no, if most bands, no one gives a shit about your masters. So don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
unless the song comes out in a fucking movie somehow, and then everyone
Exactly.
gives a shit.
Unless
Like,
you just write the biggest hit in the world. So don't fucking worry about it. So those were the things that I was like, well, you're not going to pay us for promotional content. Like, I didn't know it. We made a deal. We went into the studio and we fronted the money ourselves,
oh wow.
which Jack actually fronted $6,000. We recorded a Big Blue Movie in Jersey City
Yep.
in the B room. And while we were recording there, Agnostic Front was recording Right Upstart with
What?
Lars Hendrickson. Yep, in the A room.
Wow.
So every day they would come in and Roger was great. Moret was, Vinny, of course, Stigma, amazing. Lars was cool, but they would always be like, on the side, don't give Vinny any booze. Every day we were there. That was the same fucking speech. How's everybody good? Don't anybody give Vinny a fucking drink. Okay, no problem. Swear to God. Yeah.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, it was great. And that was a cool experience to actually, it was really cool, man. I swear to God, this is the weird things I remember.
Yes,
Those
please tell
guys,
them.
that
Please
record
say
was on,
all the weird things.
well, that record was on Epitaph, the Right Upstart. And those guys had the coolest Epitaph, like, jackets. And it's like, sounds dumb, but like, it's one of those things again. It's the driving moment where I go, fuck, man, I want that goddamn jacket. You know what I mean? I want to be on Epitaph. Like, that's the drive. I mean, I always wanted to be on Fat. That was always the dream. Like, oh, fuck, we got to be on Fat Records. Oh, my God. We were not even close to being talented enough to be on Fat Records.
Did you find though, like, because at this time you guys were, you're in Beefcake, you're making the record, you've said it a couple times where you're like looking at like, wow, I want to do that, and then you're also working in the Boar's Head truck, right?
Yeah. What happened is we were recording and I was still working. Yeah.
So
I mean,
what I'm trying to get to is that I remember when we went on our last tour, I obsessed that entire summer about how my life was going to look, about being in a band, and and I was working as a landscaping job, and I fucking hated it, and it sucked, and it was 12-hour days that blew, and it just the most miserable thing. But the only thing that got me through that was obsessing about being in a band. So I'm just kind of mirroring what you were going through because you've said it, and then knowing how it led you to, being in a band that toured and was on tour buses and play these giant shows and record these records that were huge and playing Warped Tour and stuff like that. So, and I've said this in so many different interviews where there's certain people that I talk to, I'm like, man, you literally obsessed about this so much that it went there. But
yeah.
going back to that, but like when you were being in, working this shit job that was whatever, you were just like, were you just constantly just living in this moment, like this is just where I
Oh,
want to be?
the band was my life.
Yeah.
It was, of course, every day there was something. And again, no computer, no cell phone.
Yep.
I don't know how he did it. And then, of course, listen, there's bands prior to us that, of course, it's the same story. It's just not like I was doing anything different than anybody else. But it was a daily job to come home and plot and think and what's the next thing. And then Phil wrote a new song and you know what I mean? Everything was something. But, basically what happened was we recorded in April of 2000, in 1999.
Yep.
We recorded that record. And then I pitted Bob against the booking agent is really a part of the story. We had this kid, he hit me up. Some dude in Orange County he was a young kid. He put out a comp. I forgot what it was even called, but he was wacky and he was really young and he didn't really know what he was doing. But for some reason, of course, I was nice to him and he would always call me and I'm like, oh, dude, what do you want? Annoying me. And one time he called me and I was like, oh God, it's this dude again. He goes, hey, there's a booking agent in San Francisco that wants to talk to you. His name is Dan from Royal Flush. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever, guy. But I eventually talked to this guy, Dan, and he was like, hey, yeah, I'm a booking agent. I'm like, yeah, what do you book? He's like, I book a band called Lucky Strike. And I'm like, never heard of them. And then he's like, I booked this band called the Ataris. I'm like, never heard of them. I don't fucking know who these guys are, right? This is like right around the time, right before we're recording or whatever. And I'm like, I've never heard of these fucking bands. But of course, I went out to like wherever I could find to find an Ataris record, and I found that the one they did on Fat, the 5 songs EP that they did on Fat. And I listened to it, and I was like, these guys are fucking terrible. This is awful. This is garbage. But because he basically said, yo, if you have a record deal, I can put you on tour with this band called the Ataris. So I had when Bob was kind of flip flopping and making us pay for the record because it was still a weird deal. I said to him, I said, oh, by the way, I just got a booking agent. We're going on tour in August, 3 months with this band called the Ataris. And that really propelled us to the deal. He was really like, all right, we're done. We're good. You're in. You're on. We're going to run it. And he's like, I'll have the record out right when you guys leave in August. So
Holy
that's
shit.
how it happened.
Wow.
And then in August of 1999, we drove from New York to Atlanta. we packed like 7 fucking suitcases each. We packed food. We brought a microwave. We plugged the microwave in 4 hours into the drive, shorted the entire fucking van. This is all. No air conditioner. Windows wouldn't roll down. It was a miserable start. We had no money. We played, I think it was called like the 513 Club. It was like a squatter joint. And
In Atlanta?
in Atlanta.
I think I remember this club. Yeah, it was a total
In a
shithole.
shitty part of town.
Yep.
We were there for not even an hour. Tom bought a shirt that said "fuck off" from a homeless guy right off his back for $5. Swear to God. He was selling cologne, and Tom's like, I don't want the cologne. I want your shirt. He's like, $5. You got it. He bought a shirt that said "fuck off" from the homeless guy. It was amazing. And that's where I met the Ataris for 4 goofy goofballs that came out of the van. Chris Rowe, of course, the goofiest of them all, with his crazy haircut back then.
Oh, yeah. Like a
his
porcupine
weird
cut.
ring, and Marco, the old man, and then Kid wearing like a tennis fucking or a golf one of those stupid hats that have the open back.
Visor?
Yeah, he was wearing a friggin' visor.
That was the drummer, Chris, right?
That was Kid. Yep. And then Mike Davenport comes out, bass player. Typical Mike, the businessman. Hey, Mike Davenport. Hey, Mike Davenport. Shaking hands, kissing babies, the whole nine. It's really funny to meet them that day and to kind of just know their personalities from that day forever, right? That's how Chris just walked past everybody. He was just awkward, like, and then Marco was just weird, and then Kid with the stupid hat on, and then Mike. So that's how I met those guys. We toured together for 3 months straight.
Wow, that's so long.
Crisscrossing the country in every shithole you can imagine. We probably played maybe 6 good shows. Not lying.
What record? They were on the EP on Fat?
No, they were
on Anywhere But Here, or Anywhere, whatever.
What happened was they had Anywhere But Here. Now they gave it to us because we didn't know. I didn't know anything about them other than that 5-song thing, and everybody was skeptical. They're like, "Oh God, this band is shit." And then when we played with them, listen, they played fine, but it was like, again, we weren't into it. We didn't really get it. But then they gave us Anywhere But Here, and I remember we listened to it in the van, and of course, it took about 2 songs before everyone looked at each other and it got chucked out the fucking window. We're like, this is shit. We're fucking laughing. Like, these are nice guys. And believe me, in those 3 months, we took care of each other. If somebody broke down, we all went together. We shared gear. We stayed in the same hotels. I mean, we didn't even know each other, and yet we bonded together very quickly.
There's something to be said though about bands who tour together. 100, not all of them 100% loved the other band, but there was something about by the end of the tour, you found something to love about their songs, and you'd actually you're like, I actually like this song, but like in the beginning you're like, I don't know.
I think by the end of the tour, I probably played San Dimas with them. Now here's the thing. When we were in I think we were in Ogden. They actually had a little, their new record came out. We're like, oh, no way, you guys got a record out? And they're like, yeah, come to this store. We're going to do a signing, but we're just hanging out. We're like, yeah, of course, dude. We came into the store and we're just hanging out watching. This is like fucking. There was a decent amount of kids. It was one of their good shows, and something was playing on on the speakers above, and it sounded pretty good. And I was like, hey, who is this? And they were like, this is the band that's here, the Ataris, the Blue Skies record. I was like, oh no shit, this sounds different, right? And it was.
This sounds like
So
the opposite of crap.
yeah, I was like, I mean, I will get into my thoughts on that whenever you're ready, but
Can't wait.
well, yeah. So, and that was it, man. And then from there, we actually hooked up with the Ataris again we were supposed to do another like monster 2-month tour. What happened is that we toured with them until California, and then we went from California into Texas and to Florida and back up to home. They stopped, took a break, then they went back and kind of were behind us, right, by themselves, circling. And then they were in like the PA area for like a week and a half, just circling. And then they came up.
Jesus.
And I think they played in Jersey, probably. They played in Middletown, New York. We probably jumped on a show or two here or there. And then they went back out again. And then we met up again in the like March maybe in Canada. And we did a really great like 9 shows in Canada together. And when we came out into Chicago and played the Fireside Bowl, and it was fucking jam-packed.
Yeah.
So then I was like, holy fuck, dude, it's not us, it's them. They started just to get momentum. What happened was Life in the Fat Lane came out and San Dimas was on it.
Mm.
And those guys started to fucking blow up. Now what happened was when we got to Chicago and played that show, they were like, look, dudes, we got bad news and good news. The bad news is we got to leave. We were like, what? They're like, yeah, we just got asked to open the Fat Tour. Right? Do you remember when the Fat had the Fat Tours?
Yeah.
And it was like, Good Riddance and what was the fucking other band from Santa Barbara? Oh my God, the ska band. They're still on Fat. They still release records. Oh my God.
This is gonna be a name where we're both gonna be like, how the fuck did we not?
I knew those guys. They were from I lived in Santa Barbara. They were. There's another small town rivalry between them and
Mad Caddies.
Mad Caddies, yes, Mad Caddies. They were on the tour. So it was a great tour for them to open.
Yeah.
And so of course, yeah, man, go. And that was kind of the history of how those guys went on, and then we went on by ourselves, and of course, every show was shit.
You're like, shit.
Yeah, we actually met up with Bigwig on that tour. I can't remember. The bottom line is with the rest of the years with Beefcake on the road, we did some good tours. We toured with Against All Authority. That was a great tour. Those guys were great.
Wait, talk about that for a second. Like, what was that like?
That was 3 guys that fucking just lived it and played it and fucking were gnarly players.
There was only 3 guys in the band?
Against All Authority, yeah.
I thought there was more.
Nope. 3 dudes. Wow. Danny, Joe, Spike. At the time, that was the drummer, Spike. They were from South Florida. They ripped. They were so great. I loved them. They were good dudes. We had a great time. We went back and played the Fireside with them, and it was killer.
Wow.
We did a tour with, oh my God. See, I should have did my homework today, brother.
That's fine.
What was the other band? They were from the Midwest. Oh my God.
Oh, that band.
Matt actually plays. Matt, who was the drummer of this band, plays with Less Than Jake right now. Oh my God.
Couldn't even tell you.
That I don't remember this band. Heather was the bass player. Phil was the guitar player. No, oh my God. Teen Idols. I don't know if you remember Teen Idols.
Yeah.
They were fucking insane.
See,
talk about the best match together. We partied and went ape shit with them every night.
Do you have any like? I always ask this, and I feel like this is like the podcast is typically like a PG because no one ever has these crazy stories. Like, everyone has these crazy like tour stories. Is there anything that pops in your mind from these tours where you're like, there's this story which I can tell? Anything crazy like that?
We haven't gotten to the Ataris yet.
Oh, okay. I will shut up. But you got on these tours though because like you guys are on Fearless, and that, I mean, I'm
Well,
so
he
like,
had an agent. He didn't have much influence, but he had the Ataris and they were blowing up. And the thing was is that Dan didn't really have to do anything because he was getting offers sent to him. You know what I mean? The band was getting in demand. Like after they left us and did the Fat Tour, they were like overseas 4 times: Japan, England, Australia, back to Europe, back to Japan. Like they were fucking everywhere. So
no wonder
he
he
didn't
went
have to do
fucking
anything.
crazy.
So, but he would try and find us any opportunity he could. Listen, we were a shit band. We knew it. We were good for what we did, but where I'm getting at is times were changing. Okay, so in '99, when that Blue Skies record came out, I don't want to segue to this because the end of Beefcake was very anticlimactic. You know what I mean? It
Okay.
just ran its course. Phil was turning 30 and was like, I don't think we could do this until I'm 35. And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
he wanted to own a house, and him and I had similar and different aspirations at different times. So, and it saddened the shit out of me because he just stopped coming to practice, and then I just knew. Even he's my best friend. You know what I mean? Like we lived right down the street from each other, but I knew he didn't know how to say goodbye, and that was fine. And what happened was I went to go. I'll get to that story, but
Yeah.
what happened was, and that'll be the transition to really the Ataris. But in 1999, in my humble opinion, there were 5 bands that changed the way the scene was into the early 2000s. And just this is my opinion, but it
Yeah.
was the Ataris, it was Saves the Day, it was the Alkaline Trio, it was the Get Up Kids, and it was oh my God, Chad and
Newfound Glory.
yeah, You Found Glory. Those 5 bands completely changed the sound, the way that scene went, because for 10 years it was dominated by double time beats of Fat Records,
Yeah.
just straight up chiseling guitars, and then it turned into songwriters,
Mm.
people that had melody and big choruses, right? And the songs were halftime compared to that, right? And
Yeah.
then one by
Absolutely.
one, each of them got scooped up by a major label. So it's like those 5 bands, that completely changed the face of our scene, for better or for worse. And then it turned, then you had the terms of emo and all that other bullshit. Because then, of course, we can talk about Chris Carrabba and X, Y, and Z and this and that. But
Yeah,
those
that
five
was
bands,
later though. That was
yeah,
later.
those 5 bands blew the doors off of everything.
Well, that
They
was like
changed.
that was the. I mean, when you say it saves the day. That was the record before I was trying to reference "Stay What You Are." It like that
Yeah,
went in a new
that's it.
new direction, and then like the Ataris, they still stuck with that fast sound, but there was like depth to it more so
Well,
than
I Won't Spend Another Night Alone was a song that had a huge chorus,
yeah.
right? Bands didn't have huge choruses, right? Linoleum didn't really have a huge
It
chorus.
didn't have a chorus. It was just like a verse the entire
Yeah.
time.
So, I mean, it was, uh, so yeah, that was it. So for me, the band, I didn't really accept that the band ended. I did tell Phil, listen, what happened is after our last tour, which I can't even remember who we played with, but I just said, hey, Mike hit me up from the Ataris, and he said, listen, why don't you come out with us and tech or something, just come out and hang. Because he knew I was bummed, and I was like, yeah, all right, man. So I went out, and I did the Lagwagon tour. It was Vandals, Lagwagon, and the Ataris.
Oh my
Ataris opened.
God,
This is a true story.
Jesus.
So this is now 2000, spring. I go out with them. Is it spring of 2000? Maybe it's spring of 2001. You know what came out was uh, oh,
Well, I've got Spotify in front of me, so I can tell. I've got Blue Skies came out in '99.
and the next one.
End Is Forever came
It's
out in
Forever came out.
2001.
Yes. So End Is Forever just came out, and they were touring that record. He says, come out and hang out with us and get your mind off it and work, and we'll pay you. Hey, like they paid me like $60 a day or something great. I was like, yeah, this is
Jesus
awesome. Just
Christ.
fuck it. And I love touring. So we were all in like a Winnebago type fucking, you
Wow.
know, it was ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, the thing was on that tour, they were crushing those other 2 bands. Kids were leaving after they played. I mean, it was St. Andrews Hall. It was the Metro, good sized venues. I'm not dogging these other two bands. I love the Vandals. I loved watching them, and I loved watching Lagwagon every fucking night. But I mean, I was astonished that my friends were killing. I was watching this band blow up. Merch, I mean, they're selling like $10,000 worth of merch a night. It was
Jesus Christ.
insane.
That's
Fucking
so crazy.
insane. They're the opening band. It was phenomenal.
I remember
right?
hearing this. I remember hearing these stories. But at the same time, you got to think about it. Like Lagwagon at this point had a couple years prior done double platinum, and then I think they did Less Talk More Rock around this time, maybe. And then Vandals. I mean, Vandals were big, but like Vandals were like an underground big.
Right. Yeah.
And the
I mean,
Ataris were fresh, and they, when Blue Skies came out, that went ape shit. So it makes total sense that they were crushing it.
they were crushing them. It was so strange to watch, but gratifying to watch my friends really do great. I was really happy for them.
Yeah.
So after that, I can't. It was a hellacious tour, of course. We got into a car accident. Just fucking one. It was always a circus with those guys.
What was the
Always.
conversation like though? Did they see it? Like, were they when you guys got in the Winnebago at the end and started driving? Were they like openly saying like, "This is
No,
fucking insane"?
no. It was normal. It already had become normal to them,
Wow.
where it was just like when we were driving, like Mike was just dealing with his business, trying to get like to the next show, maybe whatever, ordering merch. Chris was driving a lot, and then Kid was just playing video games. Like, it was, I don't know. I don't think they understood. I don't know. I think it just was like so quick. And it was just like, that's what we do.
Did
You know
you
what I'm saying?
find though, like you were someone who was so driven to have that happen, where you're watching this and you're in the epicenter of it going down, and your band at this point, you guys had broken up at this point, or you had not?
Oh, it was in the hiatus. I was basically telling Phil, like, maybe I can go out and try and score a deal with Joe at the bottom line with Fearless was is that we did new demos, but I will have to say the demos that we did were really raunchy and really fucked up. Like we went on the line, we went too far
Okay.
because Bob had always said, hey, this music scene is changing. It's getting softer. We need bands to continue to pound it and fucking be aggressive and be in your face and be fucked up. And you guys got to be you. And so Phil took that and went for it. And when he did, the songs were fucked up. And he literally was like, I got a wife and kids. I don't think he put this out. And listen, he had at the drive-in at the time, and it was just like things
Yeah.
were turning for him as well. He didn't need us. Listen, he put out maybe 5,000 or 6,000 records, and he sold all of them from us. We owed him nothing. He did not have any stock. There was no leftovers. He sold everything that he put into the band.
Wow.
So it was a success for him to do what he did. And you know what I mean? For a little tiny band out of Orange County, New York, it was a good deal. You know what I mean? You didn't lose any money by having to deal with us at all. And he liked us a lot, and we liked Bob. I saw him 2 years ago. I hadn't seen him in 10, and he knew who I was. I mean, it ran at me. It was amazing to see him.
That's amazing.
I always liked Bob. I never had a bad relationship with him ever. I will say one time he would let us stay at his house, which was amazing considering this 4 losers staying at his house. But he told us to park in a specific area, and we got a parking ticket. Of course, we couldn't pay for shit back then. So we went into the Fearless office, and Phil walked right in, sat right on his lap, and slapped the ticket on his desk, and he said, "Pay it, fat boy."
Jesus. Holy shit.
The first time we played in front of Bob, we played at the Lava Lounge, which was like where they did that lit video, where they're bowling. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, just whatever the fuck. Yeah. Tell
correct.
me why. Yeah.
Played in that venue. It was in Long Beach. It was us and some other shit bands, and no one was there. A couple drunk people, and Bob was there. First time he ever saw us, and we were like, shit. We got to like put on a show in front of this guy because no one else is there. So I'm playing hard. Like, yeah, man, like I'm really into it. In between every song, Phil was like, this next song goes out, the fat fuck sitting at the bar, Bob Becker.
Wow.
And then he's like, this song goes out to the guy with the little dick, Bob Becker. I mean, he ripped him apart between every. And no, he wasn't laughing. He was just kind of looking at us, and I'm like, oh my god, we're fucked. We're fucked.
Wow.
And as soon as we got done playing, he like almost tackled us. He was like, "That was the fucking amazing! Ah, this was incredible." He loved it, loved it. So
Holy Christ.
yeah, he loved it. Yep, it was good, and I'm glad he did because that's who we were. Well, that's who Phil was.
Well, I think it was because it was genuinely. If it comes from a genuine place, even though it was fucked up, like people can sense that, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I get this." I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I mean, here's the thing: Phil was never. He, I mean, people accused him of being misogynistic and this and that. He was at times, but it came from a place of goodwill. Let's put it this way, Mike. This band could not exist in today's climate ever, ever.
I was gonna
We
say.
never able. We couldn't play in Gilman back then. They would never allow us. You have to hand in lyric sheets, and that was it. We were done. You're done. You're not playing here, so it's fine. And we didn't care. You know what I mean? It was just like whatever. But we knew who we were. But Phil, he just listen. He wore a wig, so half the times afterwards, no one knew who the fuck he was. So he
Oh,
was
that's
just mouthy and
right. I
insatiate.
forgot about that.
He wore a wig. He looked like a treasure troll. He had no shirt on, wore that fucked up wig. And I
Yes.
didn't know where it came from. I didn't know. I didn't ask him why he put it on. Look, it's just the things that we did.
That was why I remembered you guys being like such this like not a calamity, like such like that's what the things that stood out, like why you guys didn't give a fuck. That's right. Actually, and Monkey posted on your wall because I'm on Facebook right now, and there's that article that came out from the Wayne Firehouse, and you guys are
Yeah, it's
on the
crazy.
top picture.
He's got the wig on, right?
He's got the wig on, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
He's got no
Yeah,
shirt on. He's got this giant tattoo on his chest,
that show was
and
insane.
that's
Insane.
crazy. That's
I
hilarious.
remember we sold like 40 CDs, and we were like, "We're rich."
Oh
Holy
my
fuck!
God. Oh dude, you sell like over 20. You're just like this is like oh I can't believe we made this much money.
Now, here, the flip side of it is when I was on that tour with the Ataris with the Lagwagon, they were selling like 70 fucking sweatshirts a night. 70. They
What
couldn't
like
keep up. It was
40 bucks a
insane.
sweatshirt or some shit or I remember those sweatshirts.
20, 20
I remember
bucks
those.
back then, 20
God,
bucks, but they were selling 70 of them.
wow.
Like, it was insane. But anyway, I went on the road with those guys. And then after that tour, Mike had hit me up and said, "Hey, why don't you come work the Warp Tour with us?" And here was the thing. My thoughts were, I always wanted to do Warp Tour. It was on my list of things. You know what I mean? It's your bucket list of punk rock things to do. Got to get on it no matter what. So I was like, all right, I'm in. Fuck it. I'll do it. I had no clue about what I was getting into or anything like that. What I told Phil was like, listen, I'm going to try and last ditch effort, just hand out some CDs and see if I can get anybody to bite. Right? You never know. But I went. And the first show was in Phoenix, and they were kind of a newer band to that whole scene. And I think the Ataris always kind of got a bad rap in that world. I felt we were a bit of the bastard child. I don't know why, but maybe because they felt their rise was too quick, but it wasn't really because Chris was trying to do it since '96, like I was. You know what I mean? It's not sure the same year as we started, so it wasn't like he came out of nowhere. But whatever, there was some weird animosity
I think
always.
there was I thought there was a weird thing because Derek from Lagwagon was in the band for like a minute and there was
Yeah, it could have been. I didn't know because of course. But anyway, I mean, I'm just working there. So first day, Phoenix, 100 fucking degrees out. They wouldn't let the band put the gear on the trucks. They told them you got to wait at least a day or two. I had to fucking haul gear for like a quarter mile in that. I was like, this is the worst thing I ever did. Because the thing about those guys were at that point they had the shittiest bus, but they were on a bus. So whenever they got done playing, they just fucking fucked off and left me there with all that bullshit
oh,
to tear out. I was miserable.
oh my
Now the
God.
thing was is I was smart and once I was able to get the gear on the truck, maybe by day 3, because the second day was in Vegas, which was also brutal. And then I think the third day was in somewhere in like Northern California. And I made friends with the guys, the stage guys, right? Back then it was the Teal stage and the Brian stage. And Brian was like this gnarly surfer from San Diego. He never wore a shirt, ever. And he definitely looked like he would kill you. And then he had his right hand man was Mike De La Cruz, and he was a friend to this day still. And Mike never wore a shirt for the entire time I've known him.
He's still
And
not
he
wearing
just
one.
still not wearing a shirt. And he was gnarly, all tattooed. He's an old surfer. Like these guys were just gnarly dudes. But I went and I worked and I didn't say shit and I didn't ask for anything. And they were fucking super cool to me. And every day then became easier because I wanted to quit, man. By day 4, I was like, fuck this tour. This tour sucks. People here suck. The band sucks. They're not helping. You know what I mean? Like this was the worst experience of my life. But the whole story is we played in Ventura, and those guys lived in Santa Barbara, which is about 25 minutes away, 30 minutes away, not even. We packed up at night. We left. I don't remember, right? I'm not thinking. I can't remember exactly what went on. I woke up in the morning. At 7 o'clock. I get out. I unload the trucks with everybody. I'm setting up my tent, changing strings, doing my deal. Someone comes over and says, "Hey, come into the bus real quick. Mike wants to talk to you." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Hey, man, we got a fucking problem. Marco is not on the bus." I said, "Oh, okay." I
Huh?
didn't remember seeing him, and we checked his bunk, and he's not there. So he had some sort of cell phone and was trying to call and call and call. And he's like, "Listen, I don't know what the fuck to do. We just got the schedule. We're playing second at 12:30, right? And San Francisco is one of the biggest shows." So they're starting to panic. And I say, "Listen, I got an idea. I'll start playing. What I know the first 2 songs, but I don't know them. But I'll play the first 2 songs or whatever. He'll show up. He'll jump up. It'll be funny. Everything's cool." He's like, "Oh, all right, fuck. I better get Chris." Chris was like taking a shower somewhere at the hotel. They got a hold of him, and by the time it all kind of came together, the story was Marco was not coming in time. He
I
was
think I heard
just,
about this.
just woke up. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and he had to drive 4 hours to get there. So I said, they were shitting. And Kevin Lyman was the manager at the time. And it was like, they were embarrassed. And I said, "Listen, guys, fuck it. Let's go. Teach me the goddamn songs right now. I know them, but I've never played them." You know what I mean? Like, so I sat with Chris Rowe with 2 acoustics for about 45 minutes and we just jammed and jammed and jammed. And, anything I said that was stick, yes, don't worry about it. I won't get fucking, I'll just keep playing what you do. If I fuck up, I'll pick slide. We're cool. Don't worry about it. Change my shirts, fucking put some shit in my hair, whatever I had to do to get up there to look a little presentable. And that's it, man. 10,000 people. There I was. I fucking played
Wow.
the show. And the thing is that it went pretty good. I kind of fucked up a couple times. I had to play Marco shit, and he had this weird guitars, and he would hand build all this shit, and it was uncomfortable to play. But hey, man, we pulled it off. While I'm playing, Kevin Lyman's pops up on stage, and all of a sudden the rumors start flying. And I just get back to work, do my thing. And then, I was hearing talk go around. It's like fucking high school, like, "Oh man, I think they're going to let this guy go." And I'm like, "By the way, Marco was my friend." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we were tight. Did not want to see anything bad happen to him, but I knew that they had a bad relationship. He was a much older guy. They were signing to Columbia. Things were changing. So
What? Yeah. That's such an awkward thing. Why did he not show up? And why was he 4 hours away?
he fucking partied. He partied the night in Ventura and just fucking got wasted. Fell asleep with whoever, woke up, was like, "Oh man, I got to get to San Francisco." That's how he would talk. And he fucking just got into a car with somebody to drive him. But so I stayed away.
Wow.
Now, all I know is that I got somebody, again, summoned me to the bus in the afternoon. And Mike was in there. It was like a mafia movie, almost like a dim light scene where he's sitting behind a desk, like, "I have a seat," And I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on, brother?" So we just fired Marco. I was like, "Oh shit." He's like, "So here's the deal. Do you want to play guitar on the rest of the tour? And then we got to do Europe afterwards." And this is now mind you, think about getting hit with that, right? Just think about, you're playing on the main stage of Warped Tour. Just think about that for a second. This was my God honest reaction. I said, "Mike, do I have to carry your shit around anymore?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, fuck yes, then." I said, "Are you going to pay me more too?" And he's like, "We'll talk about that." I'm like, "Okay, but all right, as long as I don't have to carry your shit around, I'm in." That,
Brilliant questions,
that
by
was
the
it.
way.
That was it. I was playing the rest of the tour and Europe. Now, I'd never been to Europe. And now here's the weird part. I got off the bus and I saw Chris Rowe, and he came over and hugged me. He's like, "Man, I always wanted you in my band." And I was like, "Thanks, man, thanks." But I was thinking, like, I'm just covering, right? I'm just covering. I'm not in the band. I'm just covering, right? I mean, they'll eventually find somebody better to take over. But little by little, it was just, that's I was in the band. And I finished Warped Tour, and then I went to Europe, and I came home, and then 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the other funny part of the story of the introduction of the band is it's not funny because of 9/11, but
I
when
was gonna say, I was
9/11,
like, what a shitty segue. Another funny part of that's 9/11 story.
what happened was though is when 9/11 happened, I had a flight like on the 16th, and it was canceled obviously because I had to get back to LA. I had to get back to Santa Barbara. They had a big show at the Glass House in Pomona, like a week, like I don't remember exactly the date, but so that was Tuesday was 9/11. On Sunday, I had to make a decision how to get to California. And my mom, I'm 29 years old at the time. I never owned a car in my life. My mother's like, "You're a loser. Go get a car and drive it across country and just go do your thing." So we went to a car dealership on a Sunday. And I was just like, whatever's the cheapest fucking car. It was a Subaru, right? Whatever cheap Subaru I can get, because my mom had one at the time. It was an Outback. They're like, yeah, this whatever it was, 240 a month or something. I don't remember. Very little money down. Okay, but here's the thing: you can't pick it up until Monday. Now I have to be in California by Friday. I really have to be there on Thursday. So that Monday, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they called us. Everything was approved, good to go. I drove to the dealership with my guitar, my amp, and a fucking suitcase, and I drove 3,000 miles to California.
That's fucking crazy.
Yep.
I've done
Now,
that
this is
drive. That drive took me
oh yeah,
that drive took me 7 days by myself. That's insanity.
I drove three fucking thousand miles. Now here's the thing: I had a stick, and I didn't
Uh,
even really know that.
oh
I knew how to
my
drive one, but I didn't
God.
realize I forgot like that I even had a stick because things happen so quickly. And they're like, "Sir, you have to step on the clutch to start the car," and I fucking stalled it while they were all like waving, like movement, like "See ya!" And I bucked it right there in the goddamn driveway. And
It's
yeah,
like
man,
when it's like when Pee-wee and Pee-wee's Big Adventure gets on the motorcycle and just like flies through a sign after all the bikers.
totally 100%. It was a movie moment, dude.
So,
I
okay,
couldn't.
let me just break this down for a second because the thing that bothered me about being in a band was that I always obsessed about these big shows and playing these giant venues and it never happened. And it's like it part of me it like bums me out, but then hearing about you having this parallel where you're obsessing about it and then you or in the band and then your band it's like it all seems that Beefcake was not it was fun and it was cool to do but also it wasn't getting to this place where you wanted to go so you just happen to go and tour with these guys and roadie for Ataris and then all of a sudden out of nowhere he doesn't show up and you step out on stage at Warped Tour in front of 10,000 fucking people
One of the top five biggest shows on the tour.
and like wait, which show was that again? Where were you at?
When that happened, San Francisco
Okay,
on the
because
pier.
I was living in I was living in LA in 2000. So I moved to LA September 1st, 2001, and then 10 days later, like 9/11 happened. So I was living in the Valley, and then that summer, I remember, and we'll get to that, but we'll build up to that after I say the story. But I remember being at the Warped Tour in Ventura and seeing you guys play like at night. You guys play. There's a Vans Warped Tour DVD that came out, and So Long Astoria was what you guys like opened up with. You were
Oh,
you were on you were playing that
that
show.
was San, that was Chula Vista.
No, it was in
That,
Ventura.
because Ventura was Marco's last show.
Okay, so then it was 2000.
Well,
No, okay, it
2003. That was 2003.
it was yes, it was 2003.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
that was yeah, Chula Vista 2003 was that video of So Long Astoria. And in 2001, that was still they were touring
That
Cue
album
the
you
Rap
can't remember.
and It's Forever.
And it's forever,
They were
yeah.
touring, and
Okay,
so
yes,
It's Forever.
yes.
was when we were touring the Endless Forevers when I joined the
Okay,
band.
because yeah, I mean, I was just saying like I'm okay, so that's what I'm remembering. So you like step out on fucking stage and do this, and also know like, hey, by the way, it was almost like everything you wanted was just given to you in like not in that hand to you. Obviously worked your ass off to it, but it was just in that moment you're going, oh my God, this is happening right now.
And here's the thing, Mike. It's funny because, and it's true because I know this from other people, and I've offered some people certain opportunities when I was in the Ataris for different things. When you're offered something that's so just out of the realm of what you could think,
Yeah,
sometimes people freeze and
hmm,
don't do it.
yeah,
Some people get scared. It's what they always wanted to do, and yet they were scared and they couldn't do it. And you'll always hear that thing, I'll regret it, I'll regret it. I didn't think anything about it other than the fact, now, mind you, I did because I was shitting. You know what I mean? Because I knew this changed my life.
yeah.
It really was going to change my life. I knew at some point I would have to probably live in California. I would definitely be on a plane a shit ton of times, and that was kind of scary to me. Like all this stuff, but like you said, this is what I was trying to get to, and that's what my life led to. That moment where you either say yes or no. So of course I was gonna. Now it didn't hurt that it was a shit job and sweating your ass off, and you know what I mean. So it was easy to say, yeah, fuck yeah, I'll play or be your roadie. Yeah, I'll play. That's cool. So
But that's what it takes. I mean, that's a good lesson for anyone listening.
it's a very good lesson. If you know, it's the chances I don't know. People always say it's better to do than to have regrets, but there's always a flip side of that because listen, the whole next 8 years were not all roses and victories, and it was all mostly for the majority of the time in the Ataris, it was always bad news.
Let's talk
There
about
was some
that.
some great and amazing times, but the majority of my time in the Ataris was always bad news because it was pressure. There was always pressure to be in that band.
So let's talk about
But yeah,
that. So you take the leap. You're like fuck yeah, and then you go to Europe. First of all, you drive a fucking car across the country because you need to get to California.
I had to play fucking the Glass House, and then I didn't even know where I was going to live, so I started crashing with Mike, and then they were passing me around like the fucking redheaded stepchild or something. Like I lived in Chris Rowe's attic.
But like, so these guys they lived in California.
They lived in Santa Barbara.
Okay, and then
Yep.
so you go out
Beautiful Santa
there.
Barbara, expensive Santa Barbara, like ridiculously expensive Santa Barbara.
Wow, that's so you
Like,
get so you
like
get up there with End is Forever, their album you always forget, and you guys are touring on that. Like how many days out of the year did so you said yes, and then so how many days out of the next like year or so were you guys on the road?
not much. What happened was is we did the rest of Warped Tour, then we did Europe. Then I came home, 9/11 happened, and then the next week, well, not even the next week, I'm in a car, drive out there, play the Glass House show, and then I settle into Santa Barbara. And then it was a plotting thing, like because when we were in New York was really when the band really signed with Columbia, right? When the bigwigs came out we played a show at the Wetlands where all the bigwigs from Columbia came out. We went to the offices, the whole nine. It was a very surreal moment. Um, and then when we were done with that show at the Glass House, what happened was, well, I'll get into some crazy shit real quick. Kevin Lyman eventually quit. What happened was when after 9/11 happened, Chris did not want to fly right away. He was
Right.
nervous. So
Yeah.
was I.
Yeah.
And immediately they had an offer to go to Australia. And it was a big money deal. And I and Chris both said I wouldn't do it. I think it was I just said it's too close. And everybody's like, it's the safest time to fly. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. I just wasn't comfortable with it. Neither was he. And that, I think, burned Kevin a bit. And I think at that time, H2O left him, and so did Less Than Jake. So he was only hanging on to the Ataris and figured, well, why am I even managing? I don't need to do this. I have this amazing business of the Warped Tour. So he called somebody, and it was the best message ever. He was basically like, hey, guys, Kevin here. I'm not going to be your manager anymore. So, hey, you know what? I'll see you guys in the next Warped Tour. So I'm going to take a bye. And that's how Kevin is. All right. And that was it.
Wow.
So no manager. Major label signing. and what the fuck are you going to do? So what happened was is that we took on somebody that worked for Kevin. I will not say this person's name at all. This person we hired without any paperwork, without any signatures of any contract. Said they were losing their job because Kevin no longer had Forfina, which was his management company. He dissolved it. This person came along and we graciously accepted them in to help us. And the deal was that you need to help us, right? We're getting into some big shit. So if you can't help us, maybe you want to get a job with a bigger company and then we all go together. Okay, we would accept that. Some time had gone by when, of course, I was in California. We were supposed to be writing and working on the new record and stuff, and nothing really was happening. There was no opportunities. There was no sort of anything to look forward to. And then, we were taking meetings with some other management companies, and a big manager approached us for it. And before we accepted it, we had a meeting with this other manager and told them that we're going to go somewhere else, and we really appreciate you trying to help, and we wish you the best. And it was hugs and handshakes and everything was cool. And we went and signed with Irving Azoff, who's one of the biggest music managers in the world, right? Eagles. And his partner at the time was Darren Lewis. So we get on. I went to Irving Azoff's house, his pool house. His fucking pool house was bigger than my house. Jesus. And it was your typical Hollywood moment. He was like, I'll make you rich. When of course I was like, yes, you bet.
I'll stab my vein and put blood on this pen.
I was doing the show me the money thing. I was like, yes. So, not even 2 fucking weeks later, that old manager sued us and Irving and Darren and said that we were their client and that they stole us and that they want 15% of our career for life or, $1 million, blah, 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 blah. Irving quit. He said, I'll get out of this lawsuit very easily. I won't work with the band.
Oh my God.
So Darren said, well, fuck that. He felt like the band had a huge potential. He left Irving. They made a deal with themselves and Darren took on the lawsuit with us. We had to hire a lawyer. And let me tell you, that took years to go through. Years. Not months, years. We had it on our fucking heads for years. Go back and forth to fucking court and to, discovery and all this other bullshit. And all I can tell you is this, is that we lost a shit ton of money by defending it, but we lost no money in the actual claim. They actually got a very small amount of money by us suing somebody else.
Oh my God.
It was the most comical fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. We had to sue an old lawyer who was disbarred and gave the band bad advice, right, on some contract work. We took that money, said, just pay it to this person, fuck off.
Wow.
That's basically what happened. But we needed somebody that Forfina was operating under a record label at that time, and I can't even remember what it was called. But this lunatic that owned the record label was a complete nut job, young guy. We sued him just for him to come to court to say that this person doesn't deserve any money from us, right? Because he owned the company, so that person doesn't decide what they can do. You know what I mean? He helped us out, but we had to sue him just to get into court. And I swear to God, he came into court, like shook our hands. Hey, the Ataris, how you doing? And like they asked his lawyer, like, what does this man have to say? And he's like, these guys don't owe anybody any money, and if they do, they owe it to him, not to this person, because he owns the whole company. And that helped us big time. And then he left. He was like, nice meeting you. So it was the fucking funniest shit ever.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that though, I just hundreds of thousands of dollars we lost from defending this for years.
Like out of your own pockets, or that came from that?
Yeah, of course the band had to pay for that.
Wow.
Of course. That's the money that we generated went towards that lawsuit. Listen, we were sued 3 times. That was the first one and the big one. The second time we got sued, they were both insurance cases, but they were bad. The first one is terrible. We were playing a radio show in Boston or Gillette Stadium, and there was like a side, they had built side stages and whatever, and we're playing, and there's security there, so nobody jumps over the banister, the barricade, and some young girl jumped over the barricade, got herself on stage, was like behind by the drummer, waving her hand, blah, 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 Chris thought he was Kurt Cobain, swung the mic stand around, the one that has the boom on the bottom, and he javelined it, and it took her fucking teeth right out.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. When that happened, we were like, last song. Thanks for coming. Goodbye.
Holy shit.
Oh, she had chiclets all over the place. It was fuck.
Jesus Christ.
Not the first time that he threw something that split somebody open. Anyway, that was a lawsuit, but that went into, we didn't lose that one because frankly, she wasn't supposed to be up there, and that went on the property. The second time though, after that, with the third lawsuit, we were in, God, where were we? We were in somewhere in New Mexico, one of those fucking towns that are just dirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dirt, free tumbleweeds, wherever the fuck we were. We played early. Chris and I went to a mall, right? Because that's what you did. And he's like, the guy would just, he was impossible. He'd just take his time and he'd like, come on, Chris, let's go, But thankfully, he dragged it out to where we got stuck at this mall. We had to get the security guy, who was a young dude, to come take us in the security truck to drive us back to the buses. And we were chatting him up, and he's like, oh, that's cool tattoos you guys got, and this and that. We're like, man, thanks, great, nice to meet you. We get on the bus, we leave. Weeks later, lawsuit comes in. So apparently, allegedly, there was a young lady on our bus drinking underage. She left, drove home 2 hours away, and she got into a car accident and fucked somebody up. That person was like, lawyer was like, well, where were you coming from? A show? What were you doing? Drinking with who? Oh, this band that's now currently has a huge hit on the radio.
Oh my God.
For a long time. They were persistent, but here's what happened. The young lady accused Chris of feeding her drinks, but Chris was with me at a mall, and they fucking found that security guy. They found him, and the guy said, hey, I remember these dudes. Some guy had an Arizona tattoo on him, which is Chris. And we got out of it. Yeah, crazy shit.
Holy shit.
These are things that you never hear about with bands. Here's a great one. We were playing in Germany.
Go on.
Oh my God. I think it was in Cologne. We were in Cologne, and it was the Prime Club, I think it was called. And the stage was like a foot high, so not very high. I'm short, so people in Germany are tall. So everybody's eye level to me. So I can't even see past like the first three people. You know what I'm saying? Like they're all heads.
Okay.
Because we're level. And there's a little barricade. Now, Chris, of course, we're on tour with the Vandals at this time. And he's doing his thing, spinning around, blah, blah, blah. Takes off. He used to go through these Epiphones, gave him a deal, and he was going through like 3 a fucking week. And he took this thing and he javelined it straight across the crowd. It was like skimmed off the heads. And then it eventually just javelined some dude and split him right open.
Holy shit.
Oh, so they're like, some people are like, dude, you guys, whoever in the venue, like, you fucked somebody up. Oh my God. We're like, oh, Jesus Christ. Go down. This guy's fucking got like 10 paper towels around his head. He's bleeding. And he's pissed. And we're like, oh man, we're so sorry. And this is true. He goes, I'm not even here to see your band. I don't even like you guys. I like the Vandals. It was so German of him to say. Oh my God. He's like, you guys are not even that good. So we're like, what? Just a true story. We gave him his money back for the show, and Vandals gave him some T-shirts. He was fucking stoked. Split open, did not give a fuck.
Oh my God.
Told us, you're not even that good. I'm here to see the Vandals. Yeah, it was amazing.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wait, did you guys like, did you?
The throwing doesn't end. Let me tell you, Mike, the throwing doesn't end. We were in Pittsburgh. We were at the hotel where you shower and stuff. I don't even remember what show, what venue. I was downstairs, but it was one of these hotels that had a balcony. And some fucking kids had a Nerf football, and they're just chucking it around. And Chris goes up in the 5th or 6th floor, and he's like, yeah, throw the ball up here. And they throw it up to him, and everybody's cheering, yeah, and he chucks it out back. And then they chuck it back to him, and everybody's cheering, and he chucks it back. And then they chuck it back to him, and then he just disappears. Like, where the fuck did he go? All of a sudden, a fucking chair comes flying out of the fucking off the balcony and just splatters on the floor and just cracks into like a million pieces, and everybody just runs.
Oh my God. Wait, okay. Did you have any conversations with him behind the scenes to, because if you're seeing all this stuff go down, are you like talking to him like, hey man, like, are you okay? Or are you just like, were you just in it where you're like, yeah, it's just what he does?
Well, he wasn't like, well, because of course, the whole drum thing that was on the video. That is a part of Chris, his temper. And I've seen him get pissed before at people. And I've seen him get into fights with Mike. And I've seen him get into fights with Kid. And I've seen him get into fights with Marco back in the day. Right? They would argue and fight. They would throw punches at each other all the time. You know what I mean? So it wasn't anything that I saw that was. When somebody pointed out that video, I mean, it didn't surprise me in the least. Not because I see him throw drums at people and attack people like that. I've just seen that happen between band members before.
Wait,
So
wait,
that
wait, wait. What drum video?
video, he threw drums at Rob. I forget what Rob's name. You never saw that video?
No.
There's a video on YouTube a bunch of years ago. He got pissed off during the middle of the set, and he just started ripping the drums out and throwing it over the dude's head. Oh, it was
Oh my
it was a big
God.
deal. Yeah. Anyway,
This is
it didn't
incredible.
it didn't
This is so
well,
incredible.
I wasn't really talking to Chris at that time at all, so I was like, it didn't surprise me. I mean, the well, another good one. Let me tell you, we were playing in Kelowna, BC. This is a good one. It was some fucking stupid like wakeboard fest, a bunch of wakeboarding drunk dudes scooting around this fucking place, and the stage was set up almost like a moat where there was like a bit of the water in front of the stage where like people can actually skim through, you know what I mean, with their wakeboards. And then there was like a grassy knoll, we'll call it, where people could just stand and watch the show. Right? It was kind of a cool setup, right? But we all came at different times. I don't remember exactly what the deal was, but when Mike was there first and the production manager at the show, this woman was like, hey, going over the details. And but she had the tech writer, and she's like, well, it says here that, there's no front lights, only back lights only. So Chris was going through the stage of only red lights, no front lights. He was like very, the Strokes kind of fucking thing or whatever he saw that he thought was cool. Like, no lights, just red lights. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he's like, Mike's like, yeah, that's what he wants. I know it probably doesn't sound cool or whatever, but that's just what he wants. And she's like, well, that's dumb. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm just do what it says. Like, it's not a big deal. You know what I mean? She's like, well, I don't want to fucking do it. And then he got into a fight with her, and he was like, fucking just do it. Stop being an asshole. Whatever. They were yelling at each other. It was weird. Okay. Now he was with his girlfriend at the time. She was like 100 pounds, scrawny little girl. So we go and play the show, and it's weird to begin with. And there's a ton of people, but everybody's drunk and fucking. This is a weird vibe. But apparently Mike's girlfriend went to go to the bathroom, and there was no bathroom in the back room. So I think she peed behind a bush into a cup, try to be, I guess, somewhat classy about it,
Okay.
and then just dumped the cup somewhere, whatever. By the time she walked back, that chick had followed her and saw her do it. She had two security guys come over and grab her by the neck and try to drag her off the stage while we're playing,
Oh my
right?
God.
We're playing. And all of a sudden, because it's dark on the damn stage, I can't see shit anyway. All I know is that the bass is now not playing. And then all of a sudden, I just see Chris Rowe. It's like he drop his guitar and run. And I just look at the drummer, the kid, and he's shrugging his shoulders. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Side of the stage is the dog pile. Chris, Mike, Mike's girlfriend, and two security guys fighting. He's trying to, and he's trying to like get these guys off of her. I had no idea what the fuck this was all about, right? So Chris comes, when they all break it up, Chris comes running back on the stage. He's like, I just got to say, like basically, fuck the security guards. And that's all you need to say to a bunch of rowdy drunk people. And they're like, yeah, fuck the security guards. So now they're chucking bottles on stage, right?
Oh
Just throwing shit
no.
everywhere. And he's like, this is our last song. And it's like song 13, which isn't even really that fast, but because it's like the only fast aggressive song we have, we just play it. And we're playing it. And then, of course, at the end of the song, it kind of breaks up into all this guitar noise, and he just starts destroying the fucking stage, kicking the amps over, bashing shit. Now, mind you, everything's rented. All the gear is rented. We don't own it. And then he picks up the kick drum, and he starts running towards that water. And the guys that we rented the gear from were chasing him down the stage. And then our guys were chasing those guys. And of course he did it. He fucking threw that kick drum right in the moat, right in the water. and the place went ape shit.
Oh my
And then there
God.
was a fight at the end of the stage between our guys and the fucking rental gear guys pushing each other. Oh my God. By the time I got to the backstage, it was just fucking total mayhem. Of course, they owed us probably like 10 or 15 grand.
Oh
So I was
my
like,
God.
they were screaming, everybody screaming. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Just give me my check. We're fucking out of here. And we just bolted out of there. I remember Chris had like a hoodie over his head and he's looking at me laughing. You know, he loved it.
I mean, like, there's such a that's I was like going back to the beginning of this where you just live in that space for so long. There's such a break from fucking like I mean everyone's reality is defined by themselves, but his reality at that point is just so I don't give a
Oh, it was
flying
everybody, though. It
shit.
wasn't just him. He was just definitely probably crazier than he. I mean, those three guys were crazy in their own right, but Chris had the balls probably to do some of the crazy shit. I mean, for all the things that I could, again, say that, negatively about Chris, he's a funny dude.
I'm
He was
just
the
like I mean I'm
funniest.
not like negatively talking. I'm just thinking it's
Singer,
just
funny guy. He
it's just
just did funny shit.
yeah, it's just wild that I mean
Listen, the first time I went to England, I mean, that time that I went after Warp Tour, I flew to London. First time, we met this girl online going through customs. She was a missionary going to like Scandinavia. I don't know where she was from, Detroit. She was from somewhere. Very nice girl, totally innocent. But we all chat her up, and she's like, "Hey, you know, I have a night or two here. If you guys are going out, let me know. We'll go out." Yeah, of course. Whatever, we call her hotel, we meet her out. It's me, Mike, Kid, and our old tech, Mike Beaucamp. We used to call him Beaufunk. We go out. Now, I've never been to London before. We go to the first bar, of course, just chugging shots, doing beers. Next bar, chugging shots, doing beers, getting fucking lit, getting crazy. By the time we get to the last bar, we're sitting on these mini stools, and Mike is just falling on the ground. And Mike's like 6'2", 6'1". He's on the ground, rolling around. I'm like, oh, fuck this shit. I'm out of here. And that poor girl was like, yeah, I got to leave. I said, I'll walk you out. I walked her out. She went that way. I went the other way. I went to go back to the hotel, right? I get back to the hotel. I swear to God, it was like a weird thing. I get in the elevator, get to the second floor. I smell weed right away. And I'm like, how the fuck did Mike beat me here? Because that's Mike. So I go knock on his door, and he opens the door, and he has a lump. He looked like a fucking unicorn. Somebody punched him straight between the eyes, and he had a lump protruding straight. I mean, literally, perfectly like a unicorn. The little
what?
kid is trying to throw the TV out the window, and his eye is shut, black eye. And then Mike Beaucamp, his glasses are on sideways. They got their ass kicked. I left. They left right behind me and got into a fight as soon as they walked out the door and got beat up. The next day we did like some sort of TV performance. Mike's got a fucking lump on his head. Kid's eyes shut. It was amazing.
You're like living the dream at this point, man.
Oh, dude. Everything was a fucking nightmare or just made it by the nick of time. Oh, listen, on that tour, Chris lost his ticket for one of the flights, and we went to this festival in Germany, massive festival, couldn't play. He never showed up.
Get the fuck out of here.
Never showed up. No, it was fucking ridiculous.
Did
Yeah.
you when you were like hanging with other bands and just talking to them and probably I mean I don't know if you were like telling people all these stories back then or you keeping it under wraps, but like were you hearing the other bands you were touring with they were going through the same stuff where they had the
No,
craziest
no,
shit?
Mike, and this is a true story. And it's not like a bragging rights thing. It's the truth. Ataris were pirates. People called our bus Boogie Nights when we were on Warp Tour. The other bands didn't party like them or like us. I always say them, so I try to be the good guy. They didn't party like us. They just took things to another level. I mean, they they just did. They just knew. And the funny thing, the truth about it is for example, for Chris Rowe, and just this is, I mean, I'm just saying these things. He wasn't a drinker. He wasn't a guy that did drugs. You know, Chris was actually a pretty clean dude. You know, he just partied. You know, when I say party, he just had fun. He just got wild, and people we just fuck shit up. And he would, you know, of course, do the whole fire extinguisher thing. Once he did it in Houston and had the whole fucking hotel had to empty out. All the fucking 3 fire companies showed up. He destroyed an entire room because he kicked in Mike's door and just douched him with what, you know, with the the powder one, I mean, the entire room was fucked. The whole hotel had to fucking get out. It was insane. They did it in Japan too, in Tokyo. Somebody did it, and then all the doors shut, and it's like this air thing because they try to take the air out of the room. It's the scariest shit ever when we did it in Japan. Oh my goodness.
Did you
That
lose yourself a little bit during all this time?
Yeah, I did because I feel like when I look back at it now, maybe I could have saved some of the things that. And listen, I tried. I felt like I tried. I tried to save some of the things that were going on, but you can't fight it sometimes. It was just a machine, and it was a fucking pirate ship, man. The entire time was a pirate ship, but it was fun. I mean, when I run into some of the other folks that worked on the road, like Matt Gray or
Yeah.
Joe Zariella or Craig Underwood. And these guys will tell you the same stories. These are not made up stories. These are stories that I corroborate a lot, especially if my wife's around me. Seriously, I'm not bullshitting. Tell the story. And it's pretty verbatim to me the way certain things happened. Everything is always just a disaster. Seriously. It feels like anything I've been involved in that's successful was never just run properly. And that's not a dig. I'm not trying to dig Darren Lewis because he was the manager, but he cannot control the band at all. At fucking all. No, not at all. He just couldn't. You know what I mean? Listen, these were guys that came from the punk rock world. They did what they want. They did not answer to anybody. And once you become a level where you have to have a manager, a business manager, an attorney, a booking agent, then all these people help you make more money if you do it the right way, right? But if you're not used to that and you have to share money and take direction, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, it's very difficult when, just think about it. You're making $10,000 a night in merch, and then you're doing it again on a major label, and you see $0.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
That's what happens because you're in trouble with the lawsuits. Then everybody, and when I say everybody's got their hand in there, it's just that's how the business goes. I felt no animosity against anybody that was in the business. Andy Summers was the greatest guy ever. He was the best hire we ever had. He was the most honest, straightforward, told us exactly what he would do, and he did it. He helped make us successful, and he was fucking cool as shit, and anytime he suggested something, we should have listened to him because he was speaking from the heart and he was correct every goddamn time. He was my favorite guy of all time. And before I met Andy, I had met him once before I met him in a meeting, like an actual meeting. I met him prior with Chris Hughes introduced me to him, and I felt like he was arrogant for some reason. I was like, this guy's kind of an arrogant guy. I don't really like him. But when I met him, he was fantastic. And of course, working with him, it's the best. He did the anniversary tour, that 10-year thing that we did in 2014. Best tour I did with those guys. I mean, the best tour we did together.
What was like the final struck? Because you were there. You said you left in 2008.
Well, the thing is this. So we do Solo in Astoria. We're out for 2 years. It gets grating when you're with each other like that. And, part of the problem is when you become successful, people start wiping your ass, doing things for you, and then you get used to it. Now, of course, it's not me to pick on Chris for that, but, I think he took full advantage of the fact that people catered to him, and he was a pain in the ass, and he was picky, and he was, it was always about what he wanted and his comfort and this and that. It's just a typical singer story. It's always like that. The guy who pretty much runs the band, the guy you have to rely on the most is the biggest pain in the ass. It's just the way it goes.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but at the end of the day, Chris always knew the truth was that if he pushed too hard, I would have beat the shit out of him, and he knew that. And he never pushed my buttons too badly. And listen, I was a very close friend of Chris. Very. I tried very hard to be his friend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's just a guy that, like I said, it's just socially not always. I mean, I don't know if he's different now. I don't know what the hell he does now. You know what I mean? But like, the last time I saw him in 2014, it was better, but it was different. You know what I mean? But back then we were bros. We were with each other every day. We did some crazy shit together. Crazy shit. One time, him and I, we went off on our own in Europe just to fuck off and party and do whatever. And we had to take a cab. We took a train from, I don't know if we were in Amsterdam. We were trying to get to this place, um, Hazlitt Hazlitt in Belgium for a huge festival, the Pukkelpop, right? And so we get to, I think we get to Belgium, which is only about 50 minutes away from Hasselt, but the train stopped. They're like, no more trains. You're done. Like, there's no train to Hasselt. And then we're like, holy fuck.
Oh,
There's no Uber. You know what I mean? So we got this fucking guy. He was like a Moroccan dude with a old beat up Mercedes. He was a cab guy. And he's just a local cabbie in Belgium. But we're like, hey, dude, can you take us to fucking, to Hasselt? Man, come on, can you do it? And he didn't know where it was. He was asking people. Basically, it cost us €200, and he drove us like a fucking lunatic. Chris and I were hugging in the back of that fucking car, like, oh my god, why did we do this? We're fucked. We're gonna die. Nobody's gonna know. Like, literally, two scared asses in the back of this fucking. And the guy was great because he was cutting people off, and he would look back at us and laugh, and we're like, yeah, great. Oh my god, we're fucked.
oh my God.
That was just the shit that Chris and I would do. Just dumb shit. We always got ourselves in some weird predicaments.
Did you like
Uh,
were these like predicaments that you found yourself in prior to being in the band, or did you find that being in the band just
no,
automatically put you
I'll
in these
blame him for
situations?
that for sure.
Okay.
Lovingly, I'll blame him for that because he just was somebody that was always adventurous. Like, fuck it, let's just. He didn't care.
I
He
don't
had
think I could have fucking dealt with that shit.
a bit of craziness to him, as Mike did, as Kid did. They all had a bit of craziness in them that they just fucking. They were nuts. They would just do fucked up shit. I mean,
See, we played.
Kid.
Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say Kid and Mike. We were in Houston, the same place where Chris blew the fucking room up with the fire
Fire
extinguisher.
extinguisher.
It was a radio show. I think it was the Woodlands, and it was the Woodlands because Kid and Mike destroyed the dressing room, destroyed it. I mean, threw Matt Gray through the table, of fucking just shit everywhere, and then destroyed it. We could never play that place again. They banned us from there. That's not the first time that they did that. I mean, they would do that in Europe. You'd have these little tiny trailers that they would put you in, and every night that Matt Gray would just go flying into a table. Somebody would grab Matt by the back of his pants, and he was in on the gag. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we're like, come on, Matt, let's go through the table, and just fucking slide Matt through all the shit. And oh my god, and people would freak out. I remember touring, doing one of those shows with Sum 41, and those guys were notoriously crazy, and they couldn't. They needed to get the fuck out of the way. They were just like, "What the fuck is going on?" Which is a quick side story. I'm playing. I don't even remember what show it was on the 2001 Warped Tour, and Sum 41 came on the tour, right? And I remember right before you're like when A and B stage, right, or whatever it was, the Teal and Brian stage. When one band was playing, the other one was kind of just you would do your sound check real quick, and then wait on the side to go, you know what I mean? And then you'd
Yeah.
play next.
Hmm.
And there I'm waiting to play next, and then I see Dave Brown Sound come up on the stage, and I was like, oh man, that's Dave, because I've seen the video. Those guys were massive. So he's like really close to me, and I'm like, hey man. He's like, hey dude, John, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh my god, I'm a huge Beefcake fan.
What the fuck?
That's what I said. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? He's like, no man, me and Derek, we love that band. I'm like, what? Why the fuck are you telling me this now? We could have used it to my dick. That's literally how our conversation went. He was laughing. I was
You're
like,
like,
it's amazing.
you're like, I could be like down like so many lawsuits right now if we
Oh
just
my
kept that
god,
going.
tour. There would be another fucked up tour, but yeah. I could not believe it when he said that. That was the biggest moment of my Beefcake career when Dave was like, I'm a huge fan. I was like, oh my God. Because we played Canada a bunch of times, so
Oh yeah,
it's
that's
possible.
right.
And he was there. I never asked him if he was at a show, but yeah, but that was a interesting moment. But yeah, I never thought, no, I was not as ambitious or crazy prior to. With Beefcake, it was all about jokes and farts and beer, swigging beer, and you know, busting balls and having fun. With Ataris, it was pillage and fuck shit up.
Sounds like it. I mean, again, it just the
It
amount
was
of it,
constant. And of course, the thing is, I said what happened with Ataris after a so long story. Of course, Mike, he had some addiction problems that needed to be addressed, and he was such an integral part of the band going forward, and being that guy again. Talk about a guy that had the drive and no talent. That's what I would say. The same thing. His talent at playing bass was not as good as his talent as propelling the band with his networking and his business prowess. Of course, people will laugh now because of his current situation that he's in, but at the time, he was the guy that was the leading force. Chris was the songwriter, Mike was the business guy, right?
yeah.
So we had, and again, the direction of the music that Chris and I were writing was going in a different way. And, we started writing and doing sessions here in New York. And I met some guys here in New York that were phenomenal players. They were all indie rock guys. And I told Chris, man, I got these dudes here that can play what we're thinking about. You know what I mean? Like, if I have these chords, these guys can address it up to where what we're thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can complement it to where, like, I can't play like that. And that's what we did. We wound up doing demos with a bunch of different dudes that I knew. And eventually ballooned the band up to like 7 people, When we recorded Welcome to the Night, we did it live with Nick Launay. And again, it's a sort of a thing where at the time we were like, it's a big deal. We're doing it live to tape and blah, blah, blah. No one fucking cares, man.
Yeah.
No one cares. I could have did it in the basement with a fucking 4-track. As long as it sounded all right, no one would care. But Chris was definitely really concerned about that. That was a problem for him. I felt that he couldn't get over. There's that thing where you see other bands play and you go, man, I wish I was in that band. And you're in a successful band. And you're like, I wish I was in that band. That's all. That started to happen for both of us, I think. I think Chris he really loved Tim Kasher. And we took Cursive on a tour in Europe or in England. And those guys were super, super thankful. And they would have never, and this is no dig because I liked Tim and Cursive was amazing, but they would have never played those shows by themselves, right? We were playing the Astoria, fucking two nights was 4,000 people. They were going to play in a club for 100 people,
Yeah.
right? And I kind of try to say that to Chris, like, these guys, I think they would be happy to be in our position. You know what I'm saying? The grass is always greener, of course, but I think they would be happy to be playing in front of 4,000 people instead of 100.
Yeah.
You're doing all right, man. But I sold into the fact too that we needed to write this enormous record with the wall of sound, and I was into it, man. Again, if I listen to the record now, I'm not proud of it. I definitely think that Chris and I did a great job. We whether you hate it or not, it was. We took a huge chance. We fucking did something completely different, But if I listen to So Long Astoria, I think that record is relevant today. I think you could put it out today and it does not sound dated at all.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And that's his writing. So.
Did you guys record Welcome the Night at Nada?
No, we did a demo. We did a lot of demoing there. We recorded at CD Underbelly, which was a house in North Hollywood.
Okay.
It was actually a house that was owned by Jeff Porcaro, the old drummer of Toto. He had a little studio in the back.
Oh, wow.
And this fella in Minneapolis bought the property. I forgot John's last name. He died not that long ago. He was a very nice guy. He had a studio in Minneapolis. He moved it here to Hollywood. He had insane gear, right? This gear nerd that just had all this crazy shit. And then Nick Launay wound up kind of making that his home studio. And that's who we worked with on that record. It was such a great dude who wound up, I think, hating us. Hating us and hating the label and hating music. It happens, man, when you play that game with the major labels. It's just like they don't want to keep feeding you the money. You sell a bunch of records. You know you made the money, but this thing is we made this fucked up record. They didn't like it, Columbia. And at the same time, they were merging with RCA. Don Henley quit. Will Botwin quit. Those were the big guys that championed us at the label. And then our A&R guy left, and that was it. We're done. We were done. We were left in the dark. And so they basically said, you can leave, but you have to buy the record. So we had to find a buyer. And, hindsight is we should have just dumped it and wrote Soul Astoria Part 2. We probably could have been on Warner Brothers was interested. And, there was a couple other major labels that were interested. They just didn't want Welcome to Night. They wanted Soul Astoria Part 2. So that didn't happen. And then we wound up signing to a subsidiary of Columbia, actually, Sony. So it was like a Wilco movie moment. We literally took money back from Columbia, from Sony, their distributor, picked up the record. You know what I mean? Like Sony has multiple distributors, like different little labels. We just signed with one of their other labels, and it was their money. So whatever. It was Sanctuary was the name of the label. And then they gave us an imprint called Isola Records that we basically put on our record. So, and it tanked because, well, it was different. We had no radio support. You know what I mean? Columbia was the difference between being on a major label and an indie back then. You needed the radio support. You had Columbia that had a humongous radio team, and whether they just had the pressure to get your shit played on the radio station didn't matter. It worked because they went from selling 100,000 records to 800,000 records. It worked. We just could never buy into the system, unfortunately. We were our own worst enemy is basically what happened with the band.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
But literally what happened was, Mike, it fizzled out to where Chris and I were touring in a car together doing fucking acoustic shows because Andy let us because he felt like, we needed to clear our heads. But I think what happened was that I was happy to do it just because it was good to make some easy cash. But Chris got used to it, and he never looked back from that point on, which I don't even know if he's playing anymore or what he does. But
so he just kept doing that?
That's what basically he did. He basically did not want to be with any of the big players anymore. Because basically when I left because it was just him and I. There was no direction. I asked him to do something and he didn't do it. I wanted to go to Epitaph. I wanted to just get back to writing some cool punk rock songs, fast songs, melodic songs, Ataris type stuff that people know. And I felt like we could have jumped on into Epitaph where a bunch of other bands like us were going, or even Hopeless or something like that. I was down for any of that just to continue it. But I don't know, man. That was 2008 and it's now what, 2019? Has there ever been another Ataris record?
Yeah, I'm on Spotify. Silver Turns to Rust was 2017.
There you go.
And then there's Hang Your Head in Hope, the acoustic sessions in 2019.
Oh, all right. Well, that sounds like a bunch of old songs that he probably released.
Yeah, it's like Can't Hardly Wait, 8 of 9, All Souls Day, In This Diary. Oh, In This Diary. It's Andemus. Yeah, it's all like acoustic versions of like old stuff.
Yeah. There you go.
So he just picked up guitar, just walked off in the sunset, and was just like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna do this by myself."
I guess. I mean, well, here's the thing. From when I left, I played a show somewhere in DC area, and I was pissed at him for something back then, and I wanted to really fucking strangle him. And of course, he weaseled out of there pretty quickly. And then we had a bit of a phone conversation, and that was it. But what happened was our manager, Darren, at the time was like, there's nothing you can do, John, until, Chris wants to do something outside of whatever he's thinking. And then just, hang tight and nothing's going to happen. But, we kept getting issues, you know what I mean? Bills and just, a lot of things that were worrying to me. We lost our business manager. We were in trouble. Financially with the business, and no one was looking after it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm out. I'm done. Nothing I can't convince someone to do something that they don't want to do. That's all I can, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. What can I do? I felt like him and I could have continued and did something good together, but I didn't want to do it. I mean, I guess, I don't know what he was thinking. I still don't, but for years we didn't speak. And then I got on the phone with him for the song Astoria reunion that Darren called me and Andy. And at first I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. I said, it's never going to happen because, there was some serious bad blood between everybody. Serious bad blood.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when we fired Chris, the drummer, that was horrendous. Just a horrendous moment.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing about that. It wasn't like I knew the details, but I remember.
But the long story is that Chris, kid was kind of fed up and felt like he wanted to be treated as though he felt Chris was probably getting advantages on stuff, but I mean he wasn't legally. Whatever money was made in songwriting goes to a songwriter, and if you're not writing songs and you see somebody make more money than you, it's hard. It's hard. That breaks bands up. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
It's hard, but it's not illegal. It's not like somebody was just. It's not like Chris Rowe was like, oh, I'm taking all the money. Fuck you. It's not how it worked. It's just he didn't understand that kid. He didn't want to understand that, and it kind of got in the way. And I think with Chris, for him, a lot of times it was easier for him to part ways with people than to just work it out. That's my thoughts. I mean, I was his friend for years, and we just walked away from each other. It was like, okay, there goes that. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of weird. Like, that's more of a marriage thing that happens. That's not what friends do, but
yeah.
But anyway, I spoke to him in 2013, maybe sometime, and it was like we had never skipped a beat. You know what I mean? It was funny. He's like, again, he's a fucking funny dude, and we did that tour. Like I said, it was great. It was a great tour. We all traveled separately.
Wow.
And that's why it worked. And no one was mad. No one was angry. There was no pressure. There was no, you know what I mean? It's no bullshit. Everybody made money legally. Everybody,
legally.
I didn't have to steal any merch money or do something stupid. It was a great time. It was good crowds that I'm sure you hadn't seen in a while. And then, he had mentioned to me that he was interested in doing more. And I was too. At first I wasn't. And then I was. I was like, well, yeah. And I laid out a plan to him. And again, he didn't take it. So that's it. That was it for me. I was done.
And that would say
not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Like, not like, oh, fuck you, man. Hey, I get it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's cool. You don't want to do it. I felt like we could have continued. Listen, I watched Coheed, I watched Thrice, I watched these bands who were great. They came from the same time as us, and we were just as successful, those bands, and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And there was no reason why we couldn't have done it. But, I mean, I don't know, I sometimes think that I would always say he would jump over $1 to make a dime. Just didn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, listen, there's definitely a punk rock ethos that maybe he still has in him, that he thinks that he'll just play anywhere. I'll do this. I don't need this. But come on, that's the truth. And that was what I laid out to him. Like, hey, we can make this successful by doing this, this, and that. You can always tour. I pushed him to want to do his own thing. Like, why don't you just be like Chuck Reagan, man? The guy's got a great voice, Chris. I mean, it's like, write some good songs and just fucking go for it, man. It's got nothing to lose, but they want to do it. I guess. I don't know. Like I said.
Well, it seems it seems like he might have taken your advice, because on Spotify again, they has, like, if you click concerts, it shows upcoming tour dates, and Friday, November 15th in Scottsdale, a Pub Rock. It's like Tuesday the 19th. It's all in November. There's like a bunch of dates that are out on the West Coast.
But that's him, or is that like a band?
It just says the Ataris. It doesn't say, like.
Right. I don't know who that is.
Yeah. He's just, like, doing it.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I don't know what. Again, when we did that tour, we talked a little bit after, and just kind of, again, we just faded away. And again,
yeah, I mean, it's like it's just fucking time sometimes. Just, it's like you're like, all right, let's call it a day.
We show each other on social media, but that's it. Again, it is what it is. When he's in New York, it's not. He doesn't. If he's in New York, he doesn't call me, and I don't call him because I don't know what he's doing.
Well, apparently he's going to be in Scottsdale on the 19th.
I won't be in Scottsdale, that's for sure. I wish I was to play some golf or something, but I mean, is heavy these days, super heavy. So,
Do you get people
Uh,
come up to you like now that they're like, dude, you were in the fucking Ataris?
I don't really leave the house much these days, just because of work. But
You're just like
yeah,
just booking all these bands flights everywhere.
yeah, I'm doing travel for touring bands. So yeah, it's just busy, man, non freaking stop. Fun story is after when I first joined the Ataris, uh, we did a tour right before the record, right before So Long a Story came out. We did a like a B market tour, but it was really good. Well, all the tours we did were great. The full run of So Long a Story was amazing, dude. Fuck everything you could think of show wise, amazing, everything. And you know what? At a certain point, we were a machine. We were good. We were solid. We knew what, you know what I mean? It was second hat. You get up there. Didn't matter if we were arguing or whatever. We kicked ass, and I always felt we performed well. And Chris, as a singer, fuck, 90% of the time, that guy was just on, right? I mean, even morning shows, that dude get up and he'd fucking put it on. He had a unique, great singing voice. So always give him that. But I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second.
It's okay.
I was like, what the fuck? But yeah. So we did some touring. I came home. I was at a mall, right? You'd think you'd get noticed in a mall.
Yeah.
I'm with Phil from Beefcake. We were in a store, and this fucking kid comes walking up to us, and I'm just waiting for him. I'm like, I should have had a Sharpie in my back pocket. Like, I'm like, here he comes for a signature, and he goes right up to Phil. You're Phil from Beefcake. And Phil was like just giving me the finger, like,
Take that, motherfucker.
yep, it was amazing.
That's
Yeah. I'm
awesome.
like, oh well, no one fucking cares about the guitar player. But
Which mall were
yeah,
you at? Which mall were you in? Where is it? In New
it
York?
was in town. It was like probably the Galleria or some shit like that.
Oh, Jesus
Middletown
Christ.
Galleria. I mean, this was 19. No, 2000. This is 2001.
Oh,
No,
okay.
2002. It was 2002. The fall of 2002. We did our tour. Actually, it was December, so it was afterwards. So,
You're like, Beefcake
and
lives on, bro.
yeah, it was great. Actually, that tour I remember because we had taken Autopilot off out, so which was great because I, of course, wanted Chris out with me. I mean, it's funny. Chris and I have done this journey since 1990 fucking 5, 96, and he's still in the music industry as well, and he's doing fantastic. So it's great. We were just together at a show last week, and it's always funny because we always say to each other, we're like, we can't believe these two idiots. We're still doing this.
Still doing this shit. Yeah.
We're still in the middle of it all. I
That's
think
so
he's having
fucking
a
crazy.
better time than I am, but that's okay.
Why do, unless he worked for John for a while from Nada.
He was like a studio manager. He helped book the clients, and he helped propel that business again.
That
Chris
was it.
is really good at doing that sort of thing, and he's an accountant, a business manager is what Chris is right now, and has been for 15 years already, 14 years, something like that.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's doing great. Um,
Good for him.
so yeah, he helped me with this job too, of course, because he knows everybody. So he had introduced me to my boss, and yeah, now I'm in this crazy world.
And now you're never getting out of the business.
I don't know. Yeah, it's tough, man. I always listen. My real passion and job, like what I would love to do, is I would love to work for like a company, like not like, oh, I want to work for Gibson, but like even if it was Diodario or Fender or any of that shit. I love gear. I still buy gear. I still have a shit ton of gear. I have more guitars than I ever had before, and shit. I still play. I play with a bunch of dads.
That's cool.
Yeah, and they're good, and I always tell them, like, if this was 10 years ago, boys, this would be fucking on tour. But, play every day.
We'd be destroying hotel rooms and
These guys are pretty rational folks. A couple of them are FDNY guys. So, I got a
oh wow.
captain, and then a guy that's just in like I think he's actually chauffeuring soon. So, yeah.
It's like you went full circle. It's like you started off and you're working for Wall Street and you're doing this side thing and then you go and make your own thing, then you go to this next level and have this giant fucking career and then that ends and you're like, okay, now I stay in the music scene and you're like, okay, now I'll just do like a fun side project again.
Yeah, no doubt. And believe me, after I left from 2008 until this job, primarily, there were some dark years, man. When you I missed that life tremendously.
Oh, I can
You know what I mean?
imagine.
I was pretty bitter, believe me, for a bunch of years at everybody, because I didn't know what to do with myself. The thing is that when you're involved in something like that, it's about what you're looking forward to. There's always something to look forward to. There's always a tour to look forward to. You're going to record. You always want that excitement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you're building a band, that's what it's all about. Unfortunately, when you get into a band and you do get the success, then it turns into you have to
Yeah.
fuck do it. You know what I mean? You have to go. And then it turns into, well, I really want to do this tour in South America. Well, you can't afford it. How can we afford it? You know what I mean? Like, you can't understand. Like, well, how did this turn on us so badly?
Wow.
Like, when you're a punk rock band, you can do anything you want because you're not expecting money. You're not having people needing to get paid. You just fucking go out there and play. Once you start getting success and you're running a business and now you have to make smart decisions, and that's why you try and hire smart people, But again, like I had said with the Ataris, these guys, they wanted to be punk rock and be in a major label, and it was tough. It just doesn't work. I guess, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to buy into it.
I don't think you ever get time when the train's moving that fast to stop and look around and be like, let's just be in this, because it's like you just go with it until it stops.
You don't believe me. If there was, if you could go back in time, I would have loved to have sat the guys down and been like, listen, dudes, we gotta respect each other more. We're in this together. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just, it got too far out of control. It's unfortunate. Like I said, I mean, it's a shame. Chris, man, guy could sing, dude. And kid could play. Holy shit. What a great drummer.
Yeah, he was fantastic drummer. He was really good.
Amazing. Underrated. Both him and Chris and Kid, both underrated at what they did, for sure. Chris wrote amazing. Like, San Dimas is one of those songs, like, just stapled into what the show is, right? Late 90s, early 2000s. And that song would be on a comp for your show, I think.
Yeah, man.
I'd rather be one of my songs. Maybe I can make 3 cents off of it. I know how many people send me like screenshots. Like, yeah, Boys of Summer's playing on XM. I'm like, yeah, fuck, I don't care.
Wait, so you still do get checks, or you do not?
Dude, if you
Is that even a thing? Like, did people like?
Yeah, I do on one just for the humor part of it, because I love to see the nonsense of why they even sent it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
that's just, the world of downloads and everything else. That record had done its course. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I mean, like, yeah, and I mean, just like even looking at, like, if you go to the top of Spotify, apparently Spotify is like my Google right now. Like, Boys of Summer, you can see how many downloads it has. It's 54 million fucking downloads. But I know that. I think I was talking to.
it was written by Don Henley and Mike Campbell. So
yeah, exactly.
So if there is any money that goes out for it, it's definitely going to go to them. So I don't know what comes in. Like, again, through my bitterness of those years, I kind of just didn't care. I went and collected recently some stuff, but it was scratched.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not what. I'll be happy to know that, we kicked ass when things were good. We kicked ass, and that's it. Those are the great memories, and those stories that I tell you are fucking. There's more. You know what I mean? We could do another hour and a half of just fucked up stories of just funny shit that those guys would do, and we did, and I miss that shit. Definitely miss that shit. I mean, just the partying on the bus and just fucking. Oh my god, it was, even when I was sick, no one gave a shit. Like, it was full party mode all the time.
God damn.
It was tough. It was tough to get. I became pretty much a grumpy bastard, I'd be on the bus, get my 5 minutes of free time, and some weirdo would just come on the bus like, where's Kid? Or I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Some guy came on our bus and made himself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Just fucking came up, and I don't know where the fuck we were. And then we were like, came out and like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, I'm just get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
Like, old man John, like, get off the bus.
It's like fucking just chowing down on a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Jesus, I would have murdered. I'd been like, dude, I seriously don't want to fucking be around anybody. Like, get the fuck out of here. All right, man. Well, I have to wrap this up, but I asked two questions at the end. All right, so what do you want to plug before I ask my last question? And it could be like something that you personally want to. You could also give a shout out to someone else who might want some, I don't know, shout out.
Dude, I'm too old that I don't know anybody that needs a shout out. I mean, I play in a band called The Aged because that makes sense how old we are. We're gonna release some music sometime in the near future once I get through the fall and all these crazy tours. But yeah, I think we have like probably an Instagram page, The Aged. Actually, we're playing a show in Manhattan in December at Pianos.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. So yeah, that's about it with that.
You guys have an Instagram or you have a Facebook?
I think it's an Instagram.
The
The Aged,
aged.
AGED.
AGD. Let's see. I'm on it right now. It's got, we searched through Europe, Japan, and USA to find its most unusual indigos for stitches. No, that's not. That's definitely not you guys. There's like there's the aged on Instagram where it's just like lingerie. Unusual indigos for stitches. Welcome online order. I'm giving this random Instagram account this like plug right here. I wonder what it is.
Maybe is it Aged Band?
Age band. I have to sit here. I'm gonna find this band. The aged band. There we go.
Damn.
Aged indie rock band out of Warwick, New York.
Oh, there you go. You
There you
found
go.
it.
Friday, May 10th. You guys played the bitter end. Okay, I'll have to link to this to wrap it up. This is the one I always end it all with. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Scene ethics. Well, I don't know if they're scene ethics, but I still have the drive, no matter what I do, is still there. So in my current business, I still have the drive to continue to try and pick up more accounts, get more bands that I work with and stuff like that. It's almost the same way of networking. So it's sort of like that. But I mean, in general, dude, I think for me, my whole thing about being in that scene was it's not that I didn't want people to tell me what to do, but I just wanted to live freely. I
Hmm.
wanted to just live freely, do what I wanted to do, and be happy. And I wasn't going to get in your way. Don't get in my way. That's pretty much what it was. I had a lot of respect for everybody. And I felt like that scene, for the most part, we had very like-minded people, whether it was music or the way we looked, but just even in life. We just wanted to be free, man. Just do what we wanted to do, you know. So what? We broke some chairs and fucked up some rooms. Got a couple lawsuits along the way. I was worth every fucking bit of it, my man. Every goddamn bit of it. For sure.